Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and let me call this meeting to order, the Town of Oakville's council. Tonight we have a jam-packed agenda and many registered delegations, and so many, in fact, that I don't believe we'll be able to finish tonight. And so we have scheduled a continuation for Wednesday evening after work. And everybody can make note of that. And now, to get the meeting underway, I will invite everyone to rise and join council in singing O Canada. Now, as is our custom, I will give our opening prayer, followed by a moment of silent reflection, and then we'll begin the meeting proper. God, grant us understanding and patience, that justice, truth, and honesty may be evident in our decisions. Make us mindful of the needs of the people throughout the town of Oakville. Help us govern with the wider community in mind, and so create in us a desire for progress and responsible action. We ask this in your name. Amen. All right, thank you, everyone. Madam Clerk, I don't think we have any regrets tonight. We have a full house.
Yes, we do.
Council, have we got any declarations of pecuniary interest? Thank you. How do you want to deal with the minutes of the previous council meetings in your agenda, June 17th and July 2nd? Councillor Khan moves adoption of the minutes. Councillor Johnston seconds. All in favor? Opposed? The minutes are adopted, including July 2nd's confidential minutes, right, Councillor? Thank you. We have no public presentations for this agenda, but delegations are us tonight. And Madam Clerk, would you call the first delegation?
The first delegation is Amber Way regarding the Lynbrook Public School site, item 4 of the Administrative Services Committee report of July 3rd.
Welcome, Ms. Way. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you. We'll just get set up for a minute, please. There we go. Right here. We have a stubborn mouse.
While she's getting set up, I would ask all people who've registered to delegate to sit near the front center so that you can be respectful of everybody's time and be ready to go when we call your name. There's 21 of you, so unless you want to spend the rest of your life at this, every little bit would help. So any move towards consideration of others would be greatly appreciated. Ms. Way, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Burton and members of council. For those in the audience who do not know me, my name is Amber Way. I am the educator, the mother, and the leader behind the Lynbrook Boys School proposal. Since last year, I've been asking council to consider my proposal to establish a small, independent, elementary, not-for-profit charitable boys' school on the existent and surplus Lynbrook School property. This is my 4th time addressing council. I must say, you have put me through the test, and I think that's great. You should challenge me and ask all the right questions because your decision about Lynbrook School has the ability to support thousands of families and enhance Oakville's educational offerings. It is possibly one of the most important choices you will have a chance to decide upon. I have welcomed your challenges because they've allowed me to show you how dedicated and how passionate I am about our town and about our children. You have allowed me to prove the worth of my proposal and its genuine need in the immediate community. For months, I have addressed the issues by showing you statistics, traffic reports, and surveys. I've written letters to all of you outlining key issues and explaining how I've managed them. I assure you that I have given this proposal my utmost care. Tonight, I'm here to summarize this process and paint a picture as clearly as I know how. I trust that you will find it informative. I have spent years researching gender-based education and its merits for boys and for girls. Without question, a boys' school will fill a need that Oakville families have been wanting for more than 20 years. Admittedly, I am a perfectionist. Therefore, when it came time to look for the best site for this school, I spent months researching locations and touring buildings. I always came back to Lynbrook. In addition to reinstituting the heritage use of the school, refurbishing the building and preserving the grounds, it is a perfect opportunity to save a facility for community use. Of course, the proximity to St. Mildred's provides this location with opportunities that absolutely would not be viable elsewhere. It keeps brothers and sisters together, providing them with the chance to cooperatively engage in community service and extracurricular activities. Lynbrook presents an incredibly unique opportunity for traffic reduction through shared services, but most of all, Lynbrook keeps children within a safe residential setting while giving them the fields they need to run and play. Families want this for their children. It would be environmentally, professionally, and financially irresponsible to put the boys' school anywhere else. Therefore, I began my journey to acquire this perfect site for the families and children of Oakville. Last fall, I met with representatives from planning to discuss my proposal. Upon their recommendation, I submitted my proposal to planning and to town council last December. On March 18th of this year, I brought my proposal public by presenting at town council. At that time, in order to be taken seriously, Mayor Burton suggested I make an offer to purchase the site. Within days, I submitted a generous offer to purchase that would rival any offer a developer could justify. In addition, our offer saves the town the extensive expenses that include a road, servicing, demolition, asbestos removal, and soft costs. It is also important to know that it is clear I would only need to apply for a minor variance. And I do have my lawyer here tonight who you can ask if you have any questions about that. Planning's recommendation for housing would require an official plan amendment, rezoning, a draft plan of subdivision, a heritage impact assessment that could possibly restrict the surrounding development, and an amendment to the heritage designation bylaw. There is no question that my offer to purchase is a terrific opportunity for the town. Next, I began to focus on traffic issues. From the start, it's been clear that this is the primary concern for some local residents. I took this extremely seriously and wholeheartedly completed the following tasks. First of all, I spent $7,000 to have a traffic opinion completed by a reputable company, MMM Group. The findings are clear. The traffic flows well now, and they are confident that even with the addition of the boys' school, again, at a maximum capacity of 180 boys, the traffic patterns will continue to move at a very good or better level with surplus available capacity. Secondly, I've mentioned that the proximity to St. Mildred's has great benefits for traffic reduction. I conducted an initial survey of St. Mildred's families and found that there were already over 50 potential boys from the St. Mildred's community. This reduces the number of cars in the area even further. Thirdly, I've worked cooperatively with the leaders of St. Mildred's to agree upon initiatives that will positively impact traffic. Mrs. Byers, the head of St. Mildred's, is here tonight and will review those in detail. Finally, I have stressed the importance of added safety and environmental measures for traffic. Educators and professionals take children's safety very seriously. In addition to a crossing guard, we would have staff members controlling the crossing at Lynbrook and within the school parking lots. As well, a traffic controller would be present to manage the cars in the driveways. These are extra measures to ensure the safety of the residents, the families, and the children. Of course, we would encourage neighborhood children to walk and bike to school, further reducing traffic in the neighborhood. I believe I've addressed traffic thoroughly, and it is very clear that this is not an issue. However, I would be happy to have an ongoing traffic monitoring program with our consultant to ensure that traffic is managed well and meeting expectations. At the suggestion of council, I set out to canvass the local neighborhood to determine the amount of support or opposition for my proposal. I enjoyed meeting the residents, and their support is undeniable. I have updated my chart since learning that one neighbor on the east side is opposed, and to reflect the recent sales and listings on Lynbrook Road. The green dots on the map clearly show that the majority of residents on Lynbrook Road and the two closest streets, those residents who will be most impacted by council's decision tonight, support the plan for Lynbrook Boys School. After my second presentation to council, I met with town administration. It became clear that a lease agreement would be more acceptable to the town than a purchase. Therefore, after what I believe was a careful appraisal process, a lease was drafted by the town lawyer to reflect fair market value. The benefits of a lease to the town include the extensive amount of control the town would have over the site, as well as the ability to collect long-term revenue. It also provides the town with added security in case the boys' school ceased to operate. I'd like to add that our offer to purchase also provides the town with security. It is very clear within both the lease and the purchase that the properties would not be turned over to anyone other than the town. I have two charts to share with you tonight. The first looks at livable Oakville, a plan that our council has promised to uphold. It is easy to see how Lynbrook Boys School fits the vision for livable Oakville in a manner that 6 houses never will. There is no better way to preserve the character of a neighborhood than leaving it the way it has been for over 80 years. You don't need to look further than the town's designation bylaw for Lynbrook to see its community and heritage value. To quote the document, "The property has played a significant role as a local school and center of community life. Lynbrook Public School has cultural heritage significance for its contextual value. The school has helped create and define the character of the local residential neighborhood. The building is considered to be a well-known landmark on Lynbrook Road." Those are the town's words, not mine. I believe its value to the neighborhood is well established. Secondly, the school will provide a diverse range of employment opportunities for Oakville for the long term. Lynbrook Boys School will provide an accessible community resource, and it will foster the town's sense of place through excellence in community design. Finally, a greatly desired school in a residential neighborhood, unlike 6 more houses, will contribute to make Oakville the most livable town in Canada. This is my final slide for you tonight. I would like everyone please to carefully consider the community benefits for each proposal. Again, this clearly shows how the Boys School helps to support Oakville and be a community leader. Not only does the school provide 3 times the benefits, it supports the values that residents respect most: heritage, green space, community use, exemplary education, our children, and charity initiatives. The chart clearly displays that the benefits of Lynbrook Boys School far outweigh that of 6 houses. You can put 6 houses anywhere. I haven't been on this journey alone. The spirit of people in our community never ceases to amaze me. I know that with the overwhelming support for this boys' school, we can create a remarkable institution for our community and for the families who live here. I know that my proposal is by far the best use of the Lynbrook property. As councillors, I'm giving you an opportunity to show who you are and what you stand for in our community. In Oakville, we respect our heritage and we cherish our green spaces. We are about family and we are about community values. I ask you to please consider your values when you vote tonight. We need this school for our boys. We need it now, and we need it on the Lynbrook site for all of the reasons I've told you tonight. Please vote to support the lease for Lynbrook Boys School. Your community is counting on you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your information. Are there questions? Councillor Khan.
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Way. Can you tell me a little bit, you said that you might require a minor variance. What does that entail?
Yes. A minor variance is just, we'd have to make an application through the zoning. I believe it's a minor process. And my lawyer actually is going to talk about it tonight. He'll explain it.
I'll leave that for him then. You
Okay.
also said that you reviewed other school sites, and then you continued to come back to Lynbrook. What were the sites, and why did you prefer Lynbrook over those sites?
I looked at the Brantwood site. when the school building was not in any condition acceptable for children at this point. And the parking and the road situation also were not good at that site. As you know, there's no proper driveway for drop-off at Brantwood. And we also looked at Chisholm, but its proximity, the proximity of Lynbrook to St. Mildred's has so many advantages, including the traffic and the reduction in traffic. As well, it's really important for brothers and sisters to be able to go to school together, and the parents have asked for this. As well, Lynbrook's a heritage site, and it has the most positive impact of any site we could possibly choose. By saving that and saving the trees, we're making a big difference for Oakville. And we also looked in some commercial and industrial sites as well, and I had extensive conversations with families, and those just aren't an option for children. It's okay for high school, like we have another high school, Chisholm Private School, but those are high school kids who walk to the services and often drive. It's not appropriate for young kids.
At the ASC meeting, for the
Yes.
benefit of my councillor friends who were not in attendance, you went into some detail about the open spaces and the access to the public, and
Yes.
also about the non-for-profit aspect. Can you
Yes.
elaborate on those two issues, please?
Absolutely. So from the beginning, there's been concern if a private school and a private not-for-profit independent school was to go on the Lynbrook site that the community would not have access to the woodlot in the back. And both our offer and our lease allow for that, absolutely allow for that. Not only that, community obviously is very important to this school, and I've checked with my insurance company. And by way of it being an open land, it's assumed that the public will use that space, and I am covered. It's my job to keep it safe for not only the students, but to keep it safe for the residents in the area. And I would certainly do that. And yes, we are going to be a not-for-profit school, not just a not-for-profit, but we will have charitable status. So we will be working with St. Mildred's on all of the initiatives that Dorothy Byers will talk to you about today. Thank you.
Thank you for your answers.
You're welcome.
Councillor Lepworth?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Way.
You're welcome.
The question I have is, can you just confirm that the operating hours of the school and the operating days and weeks of the school will be no greater than when the public school was there before?
Yes, most schools have after-school activities, which we would as well. Usually they go until about 6 o'clock at night, and again, those are minimum number of students who stay after school. And other than regular activities like an open house or a Christmas play, the evenings will not be operating. The weekends are free, and other than an occasional summer camp, the summers are free as well, and schools don't operate on holidays. So there would be a lot of free time for the community to use that. And we have willingly said in our lease agreement that the community can use the space when it's outside of school hours.
Okay, so the school will be closed during the normal summer hours, during the summertime, summer weeks?
It'll be closed for normal classes, but we
Yes.
could have a couple of camps running.
Okay, and also for the other times, the public holidays, throughout the year, the school will be closed?
It'll be closed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Knoll?
Thanks for your presentation and your perseverance on this issue. Just following up on Councillor Lapworth's question, the operating hours, will they be basically matching St. Mildred's across the street? So your PD days won't be separate. You'll be doing all that sort of things together, so that it's not you're not going to have conflicting days off?
Yes, we will, and all of that's in the lease as well. There's a schedule in the lease outlining the school hours,
Right.
and
So-
we would be bound to that.
So in terms of the school year start, the school year end,
The
spring
same.
break, all those sorts of things, you're going to make it dovetail with St. Mildred's?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So there was you mentioned it yourself, the concept of potentially putting this in industrial or commercial areas. And you cited the example of Chisholm, which is on Cornwall.
Right.
And that being a high school, you felt that that's where the differentiation is. And I'm not trying to be argumentative, but the school that you set up previously was in an industrial commercial area.
It was not. It was actually on a side street and not on a busy location at all.
Okay.
Yeah, you're referring to Wildwood Academy that I
'cause
ran.
my son goes to school next door, so.
Yes,
yeah.
at John Knox.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and that has expansive fields. I actually looked at a property.
So maybe you could talk about the differences. What would the difference be between that particular site and, say, for example, a site on Cornwall?
Okay, so the entrances on Cornwall are off a 4-lane highway. And as far as I know, the only site available right now on Cornwall is in front of a very large transformer station. I looked at that site years ago, And for health and safety reasons, we said that that site was absolutely off limits. So also, Wildwood is in a very quiet neighborhood, and off a side street, the entrance comes off a side street next to John Knox. So the street off of Cornwall would be a very, very busy intersection, and we're talking about really young children, and it's also noisy, and part of the boys' school proposal and part of the movement in education today is to have kids outside. They spend too much time inside, and we want the boys to be outside. So what I'm planning for Lynbrook is to develop an outdoor courtyard where the boys can learn, not just play, but they can have classes outside. And if you put that on a road like Cornwall, it's too noisy. It's not appropriate.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I wanted to get that out on the table right now because I know that that's something in the back of my head, and I think a number of other members of council. In terms of your business plan, so obviously there are some synergies between you and Lynbrook. That's
Right.
clear, and it's been clear from day one. Does your business model work without those synergies? Or how does that, I mean, if this does not succeed tonight and you go to, is there a plan B? And if there's a plan B, how does it affect your business plan? I'm curious.
I don't feel that there's another location, period, that works as well as this site. And financially, having to build another site would take years. The families want it now, and it would cost an exorbitant amount of money to build from new and tear down. We have an existing building that we can refurbish. It's going to cost $1 or $2 million to do that. We'd be looking at $10 million probably to build a new school. So right now, that's not an option.
Okay. So in other words, the business model does not work if you do not.
Not
have
if
this
I do it
location.
somewhere else, no, not at this point.
So you mentioned that this is a charitable model. So
Yes.
this is not a privately owned private school. This is going to be a charitable foundation and will be that way in perpetuity, I assume.
Yes, it would be run by a board of governors, like other independent schools, very similar to Appleby and similar to St. Mildred's. Wildwood was also a not-for-profit charitable organization. So there would be a board of governors ensuring the sustainability of the school, and we would be working with the charities in the Oakville area to raise money, which I think is fantastic for kids. They need to learn about that value. And for the boys and the girls to work together, it's teaching them terrific values, and they need to learn the value of both sexes. I mean, we send our daughters to St. Mildred's, not because there aren't any boys there. We send our daughters because that is the best educational environment. And I trust that families will send their boys to Lynbrook if it goes forward because of the best program, because our programs will be specially geared to how boys learn. But having the girls and boys together is a clear advantage that we will lose forever if we can't have this site.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Councillor Bird.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Amber, for your delegation, and as I say, and I'm appreciative of your tenacity as you on this issue and your passion for it. What I wanted just some clarification, because it comes up again, and we know where I'm coming from.
Right.
We've talked it many times, that I'm having difficulty with the traffic issue, especially now you say this will reduce traffic. What is the benchmark from where the reduction will be? Was it with the former school when it was a French immersion school on the site? Is it the traffic impact as compared, or I can't see how it can be less than 6 houses. Would it be somehow improvements to St. Mildred's to get the cars off the road, so to reduce stacking? The opinion, I'm not a traffic engineer either, it's clear that you provided seems to open up a lot of more questions as to what was the base or benchmark that you started with to make the claim that this is preferable to something else.
Okay, I think the traffic report was very, very clear. The traffic report mentions in the past that there were 400 students at the public school. So, and those were not walk-to kids. That was a French immersion school where those kids were bussed in and driven in from all over Oakville. So we have given, when we did the traffic report, we gave them a number of 180. The lease caps us at 180. We can't go over that. That is less than half of the number of students who were coming to Lynbrook School when it was operating. That's huge. Now, in addition to that, the traffic report being based on 180, we have the examples where St. Mildred's girls have brothers at the other school. So I already have over 50, and that's over 50 without a school to show them, without a program to show them. Once this school is operating, if we may be allowed to do so, it will attract numerous families. I estimate at least half will come from St. Mildred's. We're looking at 90 now. We've dropped from 180 to 90, and with the traffic report saying 180 will be fine. And that doesn't include the busing. 20% of our students will be getting on buses too, so now our number just dropped again. Then we have students who walk to school. When I was canvassing the neighborhood, I met numerous families who have boys and they want them to come to school. I've had letters from people who have daughters, and the only reason they drive to St. Mildred's is because they have a son that they have to drive 15 or 20 minutes away. So if we can put the school on this site, it will be a perfect opportunity to reduce traffic in all of Oakville. And the traffic report clearly states that by opening up the Lynbrook driveway, those St. Mildred's families who are currently dropping their girls off at St. Mildred's can now use the Lynbrook driveway. So you no longer just have to turn south, you can turn north on Lynbrook Road, thereby possibly improving the traffic. And that's what the report says.
But it's based on improving the traffic from I guess the maximum, which is the 400 students. Right now, there's zero. No, I don't want to argue. I want to get clear. Now, the last time you're working with St. Mildred's, one of the concerns was with the issue of traffic was enrollment cap on this area.
Yes.
We're now down to, with the two schools, less than it was before. But you're proposing to go to eventually, with the maximum at St. Mildred's plus yours, or in excess of 800 students in that capacity. And I'm having difficulty trying to rationalize how we can put 800 students safely in that, so close together, basically either side of the road. I don't know whether there's others example how it's going to work. With the amount of traffic and the functionality of Lynbrook Road, which virtually no alternative to it, other than Lakeshore and Cornwall, how that is going to be handled, unless you're going to decrease the enrollment cap of the 630 on St. Mildred's. Did you discuss what we'll call density transfer or student transfer between the two? Because we weren't looking at boys or girls, we were just looking at traffic impact.
Yeah. We have looked at the numbers, and it's a very good question. It's a valid concern, and I know that some of the residents have addressed it. That's why I have worked so hard. I consider myself a very proactive person, and I would work to help the community. So when St. Mildred's was capped at 625, it was felt that 625 was a good number for the community, and that was with 400 kids. That pushes you over 1,000. This would only be 805 at maximum capacity. So it is a great reduction of what was deemed acceptable years ago when that cap was put in place.
Back to that later. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for your information.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, the next delegation, please.
Is Don McMillan, again regarding the Lynbrook School Site, item 4 of the Administrative Services Committee report.
Mr. McMillan, welcome. Council looks forward to your information, and thank you for sitting near the microphone.
Your Worship, members of Council, thank you. I found some of the comments that were made quite interesting because there seemed to be a number of contentious issues that are being raised as facts that are really not facts. And I find that going through the neighborhood, the same thing happens. A number of people have suggested that, well, if we put residences in, we're going to lose the woodlot, we're going to lose this, we're going to lose that. That's not the case. There would be no difference between the residential development and the school as far as those elements that were put in place by the heritage designation. And I think that should be made quite clear. Now, I speak to you as a resident of this area for some 46 years, and I think I have perhaps more invested in terms of my interest in the area than most, including the proponent. My 3 children went to Lynbrook School. They walked. As a matter of fact, my oldest son proposed to his now wife in the grade 3 classroom 30 years after they both attended. And the teacher was at the wedding. So I speak with a certain amount of passion about what happens to this property. When I moved there, there was a very attractive 2-room schoolhouse run by the nuns, was a benefit to the neighborhood. Unfortunately, that was Lightburn School. When it became St. Mildred's, and this huge commercial operation took over, the entire neighborhood changed. Now, this is a property that is an asset that belongs to the community, and I think we have to keep that in mind with everything that is being said. But first of all, one of the things that Ms. Way said that really disturbs me is that the zoning change required would be a, what did she call it? A minor variance? I spent 30 years as a planning consultant in this town, and I will assure you that what is being required to accommodate the school can hardly be deemed a minor variance. It is a zoning amendment. The original zoning bylaw that applies to that area included school usage, but they did not envision commercial operations like St. Mildred's, or even charitable operations such as the proponent is requesting. It was for public schools. The zoning now does not permit this use for a very good reason, because the area is impacted to a point that it shouldn't have to be. That's why the zoning does not permit private schools on Lynbrook Road. It's that simple. The fact that one is there is simply because the old Lightburn School was taken over by St. Mildred's, and that preposterous thing has emerged, which has devastated the neighborhood, personally, in my opinion. It has changed the neighborhood dramatically. Now, there is only one legitimate study that has been done to determine people's feelings, and that was done by the Chartwell Ratepayers Association. It was unbiased. It simply asked people their opinion. That's a proper survey. When you go around and confront people face to face and give them the opportunity to agree or disagree, that's not an unbiased survey. That's collecting names to put on a petition. There was original public hearings on these properties. Now granted, those public hearings did not include the potential of this proposal. But my understanding was that those public hearings did, in fact, look at the potential of using those properties, that is the school properties, as a base to provide community facilities for Southeast Oakville, which don't exist at the present time. I don't recall any discussions surrounding commercial operations or even charitable operations that would benefit individuals. It was to benefit Southeast Oakville. And I would suggest that, contrary to what has been suggested here, the school, while it may benefit some people in the general area, it probably benefits people from Mississauga and elsewhere, just as St. Mildred's does now. There was reference to a traffic study. I spent 30 years, as I say, as a consultant, and I never saw a study done at the request of someone that did not come up with answers that benefited the person who paid the bill. I would like to see a legitimate traffic study. There are some things that really concern me, not the least of which is the statement that, well, we're going to reduce the traffic. Reduce the traffic. St. Mildred's Lightburn has not reached its cap as yet. When it does, I'm sorry, but I can't see anything other than that increases the traffic. To state that the majority of the students are going to come, or I think she got up to the number 90, which is half, are going to come from families that already attend St. Mildred's, that's conjecture. We don't know that. Some are still going to come from Mississauga, could come from Aurelia as far as I know. But a very interesting thing that slipped by was the the statement about children walking to the school. As I say, my kids went to Lynbrook School and they walked. This traffic issue, one of the things that really disturbs me is the house across the street from me. I live 2 blocks from this property. The house across the street from me was bought 2 years ago by a family, and I understand one of the reasons was that they have 2 girls that attend St. Mildred's. Very logical, they're close to the school. So one would think they'd walk. No, they're driven by the nanny. What's worse is that because the 2 girls are in different classes, they are delivered and picked up at different times. Now that, to me, does not show consideration for traffic concerns in the area. That, to me, is plain stupidity. It's a generally quiet neighborhood until you get onto Lynbrook with all the traffic of people going to the school. There's no reason to have to drive them to school. Also, I think one of the areas that concerns me is whether or not this proposal will return to the taxpayers who own the property the same financial benefits that residential development would. Private schools don't pay taxes. They live off the system. Residential properties do pay taxes, which means there's an ongoing revenue stream if residents go on that property. Now, it has been suggested that using the property for residential development is detrimental. It maintains all of the heritage elements. There's also another factor that most people wouldn't be aware of, but you as council would be, because the province has declared that the town shall increase the density in the quadrant south of the Queen Elizabeth Highway. The purpose of that is to reduce the pressure on expanding the community outside of its existing boundaries. How do you find extra residential capacity within the bounds of the existing community? You do it by infill development such as this, which then in turn reduces the need to build, heaven forbid, apartment buildings to make up that capacity. So there are benefits to putting residential development there. I've lived there for a long time. I enjoy the area. I do not enjoy the traffic. And believe me, anyone who says that traffic is not a problem and will be reduced, I will argue to the end of my days that that is not going to happen. Traffic will be increased. It's that simple. Another thing that perhaps has been overlooked, we've heard talk about the hours that traffic is of concern, from 8:15 in the morning till 8:45.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
You need to wrap up.
Okay.
Your time is out.
There are other things that happen on that site. There are buses that arrive at 5 o'clock in the morning to take people on school trips. That's St. Mildred's, and neighbors can attest to this. There are deliveries that are made. There are bazaars that are held. So let's be honest when we look at the operating hours.
So I'll
I
cut you
would
off.
behoove you to.
I have to cut you off there,
Okay.
but Councillor Giddings, as it happens, has questions for you.
Okay.
So let's turn to Councillor Giddings, shall we?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, my questions aren't for you, Mr. McMillan. Thanks for coming out, but I would like to ask staff some clarifying questions that may answer some of your concerns.
Well then, Councillor, why don't you hold that, and we'll go to Councillor DeMoff and then Councillor Robinson.
By all means.
Thank you for coming out tonight. You referred to the proposal as a commercial operation, and I'm a little confused by that. It's to be operated as a school. So I'm wondering why you're referring to it as a commercial operation. We're not putting a business.
People
in
pay
it.
for their students to go there?
Okay.
That's that simple.
And also, with regard to the traffic study, I was checking who had done it because I wanted to make sure that it was MMM Group, who's a group that the town used. So you have said you don't trust what was in that, but these are professionals who do it, who stake their professional reputation on it. So I'm wondering what's the basis for not taking a reputable company's study at its word?
Reputable or not, it was paid for by the proponent, so one still has to question the results. The results will always be in favor of the person who's paying the bill. There are, by the way, other traffic studies, and I wish we could bring them forward, that apparently were done by the Halton Region Police in the last couple of years. That would be interesting to see, the true traffic numbers.
And with regard to the kids walking, I couldn't agree with you more that those kids should be walking to school, but that's not an issue just at St. Mildred's. That's all across Oakville and every other city, and it's something that I've been trying to change. But the fact that kids don't walk or bike to school is an issue for every single school. My other question was, is in our report, it's quite clear that the town is getting fair market value for these properties. So whether it's you seem to think that we're not getting fair market value for them by you doing the Lynbrook proposal, but our report's quite clear on that.
I haven't seen any numbers, so I don't know. I don't know what the offer to purchase was or the offer to lease, whether when you work out all of the elements that go along with it, whether or not it matches market value sale price. I haven't seen those. I'm not privy to those numbers, so I can't respond to it.
Okay.
So,
You do have
Councillor,
a report, though.
To get through 21 delegations, if we're going to, and I think you're debating, we'll never make it. We'll need days and days. If we could all discipline ourselves to just asking real questions for real information, and then we'll debate among ourselves, that'd be a more efficient meeting. I ask you, please, only ask information questions.
Thank you.
Councillor Robinson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good to see you again, Don. It's been a while.
Thank you, Councillor.
You spoke about traffic studies. You spoke about yourself living there. I think you said for 40 years or some long time.
46 years, yeah.
Could you tell us, I guess, in your opinion, how would you compare the traffic now to even, say, 5 years ago?
The traffic now is less because the Lynbrook School is not operating. So the traffic now is less than what it was 5 years ago, while it was operating as an immersion school.
I should have asked the question differently then. If Lynbrook was operating as a school today, how would you compare today's traffic with 5 years ago?
Well, if it was operating as it did as a community school in the days when Lynbrook was a community school,
Right.
then the traffic was less because most of the students then walked. People did not drive their children to Lynbrook School before the days of French immersion. There were very few parents driving students.
I'm not clear that I got your answer, but I think you indicated that there was probably, there would be an increase in traffic now based on the way you've just described it?
Oh, definitely. I see them coming around my block when they leave the school.
Thank you. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Adams?
Thank you very much for your delegation. Could you said you live 2 blocks away. Whereabouts do you live exactly?
On the corner of Chamberlain Lane and Melvin Avenue.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, I was not at the ASC meeting because I'm at the Community Service Committee. Did you have other points that you made at the Admin Service Committee that I would have missed?
I believe what I've said tonight is in keeping with what I mentioned that night. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Johnston and Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your delegation today. Is there to save time, a lot of my questions have been asked, is there one pertinent piece of information you haven't shared with us that you'd like to?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, but I may do so after I sit down, as always the case.
Well, he won't be able to complain that you weren't trying to fish something out of him. Councillor Elgar, your turn.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. You mentioned you worked for the town for 30 years, and I guess I'm trying to understand, and then you talked about consultants, and basically he who pays the money calls the tune. Are you inferring that the town, when the town hires consultants, that they tell the consultants what the end result has to be?
No, first of all, a correction, Councillor, I did not work for the town for 30 years. I did work for the town, actually, some, I don't know, 50 years ago. But no, I worked as a private consultant, and I found generally that the results of a study were geared towards the person who was paying for the study. That is the reason you have it done, is to support your argument. I can't remember any consultants that we were engaged with that ever came up with a set of recommendations that was contrary to what our particular client required.
Councillor Elgar, maybe that's why you always prefer peer reviews of client-sponsored studies. You're kind of famous for that. Councillor Knoll?
Thank you, Worship. I'm just looking at the map. You're at Chamberlain and Melvin, correct?
Yes.
So can you describe what the traffic impacts would be on your property? Because I'm looking at a map and it's kind of hard to imagine based on just looking at lines on a map. So can you maybe describe the impacts on you, on your property and your lifestyle?
Cars would exit the site, that is Lightburn, St. Mildred's Lightburn we're talking about, because it was now some of them may also have been delivering students to Lynbrook when it was French immersion. They would then turn north on Chamberlain and then turn again west on Melvin to proceed back to Chartwell, or some of them would turn right onto Cynthia Lane to get over to Morrison.
And what kind of impacts did you experience as a result of this? What was your lifestyle impact that has you most concerned?
Well, interesting, the most noticeable was that at least once or twice every winter I would have to assist somebody out of the ditch because they didn't bother to stop properly at the intersection and slid right through into the ditch fronting my property. Fortunately now they put in a four-way stop. Whether anybody will adhere to it remains to be seen.
Were those all students or parents from Lynbrook or from St. Millie's?
Well, judging by the fact they were generally the type of vehicle and the type of driver, single parent, I can't guarantee, but it was at that time, all right?
Okay. Thank you. First, we have to have order. I would urge everybody to try to give respect to the speaker. If you don't agree, you're going to have your chance. And Councillor, I think you're fencing with the delegation, and I would caution you, like I did, Councillor DeMoff, we have a lot to get through. If you're looking for, you should be, I hope, asking for questions that bring information that we can use in our debate.
Well, just gentle pushback, Your Worship. I'm done, first of all. But most importantly, I think that this delegation was attempting to use his personal experience as an argument for why this is not the appropriate use for this particular property. So I felt it important to investigate that a little bit. I've done that. I'm satisfied. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So, like I say, we're here to receive information. It's the Oakville way. We don't argue with our delegations. And thank you, Mr. McMillan, for your. Oh, sorry, Councillor Khan wants to go at you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry? You said that it wasn't the property in question wasn't zoned commercial. And
No, I didn't say that.
So can you clarify that, please?
The property is zoned residential, single-family residential. The zoning bylaw does permit school uses. The original Lightburn School, of course, was in existence prior to that zoning bylaw coming into place. That's why it was permitted. But the zoning bylaw that is now in place does not permit private schools on a road of that size.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at. So if it was a private school or a public school, would that really have any impact in the neighborhood? And if so, can you explain how so?
I'm not sure I follow you. If we're talking about zoning, the zoning is very specific. It does not permit that use on a road of that size for the very reason of traffic.
Right, and your suggestion is that a public school would be allowed?
A public school is, now, this would have to be verified by your planning staff. I've been out of it for a while, but my understanding is that a public school is allowed in a residential zone.
And would that have any more or less impact on the neighborhood?
Councillor, there's, staff have information on this, including what happened in 87 and 89 to produce the zoning that the gentleman is here, that you're engaging the gentleman on. Can I recommend that you allow staff to tell you about that?
Fair comment. If I can just continue with just one other question, then I'll leave that topic.
Thank you.
Thank you. You discounted the MMM group traffic study, and your assertion was that they may very well be biased because of where, who's financing that study. So your suggestion is that traffic will most likely increase where there is a school being implemented?
There's no doubt in my mind.
With that assertion, would traffic not increase anywhere where there was a school being built?
Well, I suppose it would.
You're not taking the position that a school shouldn't be built, are you?
I'm not taking the position that schools in general shouldn't be built. I'm just taking the position that this is not the proper location to put a second school.
I'm being admonished by the mayor, so I'll withdraw that question.
I mean, surely you recognize that, you totally recognize that's argumentative, right?
I did.
He's a lawyer, Your Worship.
Thank you. Mr. McMillan, before anyone else wants to argue with you, thank you for your information.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Madam Clerk, the next delegation, please.
Is Brian Baumler regarding the same matter, the Lynbrook School site, item 4.
Mr. Baumler, welcome. Council looks forward to your information, and we won't argue with you.
I do enjoy a good debate. Mr. Mayor, councilors, thanks for having me down to speak. Although I do enjoy a great debate, Amber Way, I think, has done an incredible job at researching and providing information on the school. Even if I was opposed to this, I don't think I'd win the argument. As a father of 4 children, we have 2 daughters and 2 sons. We have 1 daughter at St. Mildred's, and I think every day that I do deliver the children to school, and it's not every day of every week, but when I do, I perform my own traffic study. And Lynbrook, actually dropping the kids off at St. Mildred's, is the lightest part of traffic of the day. I'm amazed at the lack of traffic there compared to the other schools, because then we head up towards Fern Hill. And Ninth Line is a nightmare. It is completely full of cars and traffic. It's backed up to Dundas. Upper Middle Dundas is a complete quagmire. Personally, if we could drop our daughters off and our 2 sons in one spot, that would make sense to me. I think numbers that Amber presented us with were 50 potential children from 81 families that were asked at St. Mildred's. Extrapolated, that's almost 400 students. So that's more than double the capacity of the school just from sons alone at St. Mildred's. So I think it makes a lot of sense. As a builder, I'm torn, because the property would be great to get my hands on and build and develop. However, environmentally, I don't think it makes sense. We have an existing school, we have a heritage site. To knock that down and rebuild is not only environmentally irresponsible, but I think we're residents. We live over by Dorval and Rebecca, where we've added, I don't know how many thousands of people on that corner. We bought there about 10 years ago, knowing that there was a school across the street, knowing that the D&D lands on the corner would eventually be developed. Now, it takes about 20 minutes to get out of Weybourne or Waneta onto Rebecca. When we moved there, it was instant. We're not upset because we moved there knowing that there was a school in the area. We moved there knowing that there would be development in the area. So I think any arguments regarding traffic, if you move into a neighborhood where there is a school, whether it be 40 years ago or not, you have to expect there'll be traffic there. So any arguments toward traffic, I almost have to dismiss that, because it's like moving to the airport and complaining about the airport noise. You know it's there. We're looking at putting in a school that's going to service hundreds of children for the next generation. We're not looking at 2 generations ago that are not in my backyard types of development. This is not Amber asking to build a school. This is not her asking to spend a lot of the city's money. I think really this proposal is money saving for the city. I think it makes sense for a lot of parents. If we look at it from a green environmental standpoint, there's less driving. We're going to reduce traffic at all the other schools for all the other brothers of students at St. Mildred. So we haven't really taken that into account either. Hopefully 9th line north of Dundas and north of Upper Middle will be a little lighter. Well, hopefully for some of us, but not everybody. Not everybody's going to be happy about that. I think that's going to continue to grow. Like I said, the increase in density we've seen at Dorval and Rebecca is, I'm frightened when all the residents move in there, even with the existing school and the new condominium buildings and the townhomes and the number of homes being built there. It's going to take a lot longer to get up. So as a parent that delivers my children to Fernhill and to St. Mildred's, I can personally say the traffic there is not an issue. It's one of the lightest roads I find in Oakville. Chartwell and Morrison are much heavier. Cornwall, essentially, the traffic is moving so fast. I mean, people are doing 80 or 90 down Cornwall. It's not a safe area for a school or to put kids in. And personally, I don't want to drop my young children off, Amber made a great point, in an industrial or commercial area. It doesn't make sense to me. There's an existing school, there's existing infrastructure, it's revenue for the city. There's families at St. Mildred and the community that will benefit from it. I have a couple other notes here from my wife. Sorry. One of the great things that we noticed is our daughter Charlotte comes home and says, I went for a walk in the neighborhood today, and we looked at animals and birds and green space, and they walk from St. Mildred's, and they walk around the neighborhood, and they enjoy the neighborhood. Those are people that are experiencing a youth growing up in Oakville that are going to come back and spend time in Oakville. I spent 8 years at Appleby, and everybody I talk to says, you're so lucky. The beautiful property, the land, you're in Oakville. Appleby, traffic-wise, is a nightmare now. There's people that avoid Lakeshore because there's only one entrance where there used to be 2. It is nothing compared to the ease of dropping kids off at St. Mildred's. I think anyone that has children would tell you that. The people that drive a block to drop their children off, that's a completely separate issue. They're going to do it everywhere, I think. I think as a taxpayer in Oakville, as a family, as a father of 4 children that will put it in, and talking to a lot of other families, it doesn't make sense to listen to non-growth or not in my backyard arguments or facts that traffic will increase when they're going to increase anyway. I think we have to look at maintaining infrastructure that's already built, being responsible for the environment, and going forward, not backwards. There was a comment made that schools don't pay taxes, but the hundreds of families that send their kids to those schools do pay taxes, and we pay taxes for schools that we don't use. And we pay more money to go to schools that are independent. So we are taxpayers, we do contribute to the city, and I think this is one of the best proposals I've seen. Otherwise I wouldn't be here.
Thank you very much
No
for
problem.
being here.
No problem. Thank you.
Councillor Adams has a question for you.
In defense of Northeast Oakville's road network, the close to $290 million in capital projects at the region for roads includes widening 9th line to 4 lanes this year.
Is there a question?
So, did you know that?
Are you fencing with me? Or? I did know that because I've sat in the traffic while construction's getting set up. Yeah, it'll be great when it's done.
Please give us your patience. Thank you. I just.
No, I do.
Oh, more over here. Councillor Demoff?
Thank you for coming out. If the school was on Cornwall Road, would you send your sons there? And second of all, are you aware there's no sidewalks on Cornwall Road?
I am, because actually we were business owners on Cornwall Road with a dance studio for years for older high school age children. I'm aware there's no sidewalks, there's too much traffic, and no, I probably wouldn't send my children there. Our issue in Oakville has been the lack of, and being an Appleby boy, my last year at Appleby was the first year of a co-ed school. We've been looking at schools outside of Oakville, in Toronto and in Hamilton for an all-boys school, because you can't argue with the science that it's better for children, better for boys in that environment. But no, I mean, I think it makes sense where it is, for sure.
Councillor Giddings.
Thank you very much for coming out. Similar to Councillor Adams, concerned about solving your traffic issue on 9th Line. We've solved that on Cornwall. We have sidewalks on the south side of Cornwall and north between Morrison and Maple Grove. So just...
Is there existing infrastructure there for a school?
Don't know, I'm just answering the sidewalk question.
No, there is, well, I can tell you there is.
Yeah, well,
There is
System
on-
Academy.
on
My
Lindbergh.
question to you is, don't want to ask your age, but, and the note from your wife.
I'll be 40 next year. So I have a long future. I have another 12 years of students in my home. So I look to the future. I'm not, and when I am older, I don't have kids of age. Of course, do I want a school next to my house? Not necessarily. But if I buy a house next to a school, I'm going to expect there to be a school there.
Well, and further to your comment, you're a graduate of Appleby. Just curious in terms of what year, was that when it was all
92.
boys or when they had went co-ed?
My last year at Appleby was the first year of co-ed, so 91, 92.
All right. And 4 kids, maximize the RESPs.
4 kids, 2 and 2. I'm a builder. I build.
Yeah, and you create your own demand.
I do, which is tough because it's a great site for building, but it's a better site for a school.
All right. Well, in order to continue to press ahead, we're going to have to thank you and move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Is Miranda Huska, again regarding the Lynbrook School site.
Ms. Huska, there you are. Welcome. Council is looking forward to your information.
Good evening. My name is Miranda Huska, M. Huska, and I'm here tonight with my husband, Reed Bagri, my daughter, Julia Bagri, and my son, Wave, Connor Bagri. We have lived at 457 David Avenue for almost 20 years, and both Julia and Connor attended Lynbrook Public School. The mouse. Okay, there. This is our house. And my reason for being here tonight is simply explained. We are here to ask you to save the historic Lynbrook School building in its entirety and its original purpose. And we ask you to save the school grounds as green space. The proposal from the Independent Boys School will accomplish that, and we strongly support it. We see this as the best outcome for our neighborhood and the wider community for the following reasons. This is Lynbrook School. You will be saving history for generations to come. Historic and charming Lynbrook School, preserved in its entirety and original purpose. To this family, to my family, and many others in the community, saving the school and the schoolyard is the most significant aspect of the independent school proposal. Once you tear down half the school building and convert the other historically significant half to a residence, there is no going back. Our beautiful and charming historic Lynbrook School is gone forever, out of community use forever. 88 years of collective memories gone forever, and forever goes beyond all our lifetimes. This is the grounds at Lynbrook School that we look out upon. And precious green space will be saved, this precious green space. We look onto the school. We know that the grounds are used by many people in the community every day. The proposed school will guarantee that the grounds will be available for public use outside of school hours. I think schools, be they public or private, are good for communities. They are the very reason that people choose to live in a community. They bring vibrancy, they bring vitality, and it's important for people to have places to walk to, centers to gather in, heritage buildings to uphold our common legacy. We have lost several schools, but we have a chance as a community to keep one. Lynbrook School is a beautiful building that brings grace to our neighborhood. It represents the character of our community. We believe that changes to traffic on Lynbrook will be minor and may in fact be improved in the wider community. The proposed boys' school has worked with St. Mildred's to develop an excellent traffic plan. St. Mildred's Lightbourne School is established in the community, and while there have been concerns in past years about their expansion, it is our opinion, shared by our fellow residents on David Avenue, that St. Mildred's Lightbourne School has made for a good neighbor in the past couple of years. Admittedly, there is a 10-minute period at drop-off and pickup where we contend with that traffic as well. But the measures that they've taken to move traffic and educate their parents is evident. And if you want to talk about traffic, please consider all the construction traffic that will block Lynbrook Road and David Avenue while new roads and houses are constructed. Backhoes, excavators, dump trucks, utility vehicles, concrete trucks, bulldozers, that is traffic that may block ambulances. The proposed school will be a resource for the wider community. Parent education on schooling for boys will be open and available for all in the community to attend. Other events will be open for the wider community. And other organizations use school facilities in school breaks. For example, just this morning I took this photo of the signs. These are signs right on Lynbrook at the end of David, directing people to the Oakville Suzuki summer camp, which is being held at St. Mildred's Lightbourne this week. Schools are used in the summer by other organizations, and other organizations in the wider community benefit from that, and we think that's great. The South Central land study was not a referendum. Many residents did not participate, and it seems that the opinions of those who did weigh in on Lynbrook have been discounted a bit. I pulled some data from the study, and there was 3 options, A, B, and C, were presented for the Lynbrook site, and I know you're very familiar with these, but Option A stated that the woodlock would be maintained, that the southern portion would be used for private community use, and the heritage school building on the east side of the building would be maintained. Option B was essentially the same as A with regard to saving the school and much of the green space, but provided for 2 building lots fronting on David Avenue. And option C was the one you are considering this evening. Option C sees the lots being developed for 6 lots for residential use, and the heritage schoolhouse will be maintained to be renovated and converted into a dwelling. And I saw from the findings that 64 people selected either A or B as their preferred option, whereas option C was only selected by 54 people. And to me, it's simple math to see that more people selected saving the school and the school grounds and the green space than wanted it turned into building lots. Furthermore, and I think this is very telling, the same document reports that the 3 most important evaluation criteria to all respondents in reference to Lynbrook were 1, to maintain neighborhood character, 2, to preserve trees, and 3, to address the heritage features appropriately. I ask you this: how can neighborhood character be maintained by tearing down and converting a historic building to a residence? How is neighborhood character maintained by building homes on fields that have been baseball diamonds, soccer fields, walking and running and picking clover places? How do you preserve trees by cutting down mature trees in a schoolyard and those lining David Avenue? And how can you possibly address historic features appropriately by converting a historical school into a house? Tonight, I ask you to consider all these things very carefully when you are voting. Consider the history you will be preserving for today's residents and future generations when you are voting tonight. Please consider 88 years of Lynbrook School. Consider the trees you will be saving. Consider the traffic congestion of heavy construction vehicles building roads and houses for months and months to come should you vote against saving Lynbrook. Please consider your legacy as councillors. You have an opportunity here to do the right thing for those of us standing in front of you and generations to come. And we thank you for that consideration.
Thank you for your information.
And one more thing, I do have a letter signed by the residents of David Avenue that are in favor of the school and saving Lynbrook. So can I present that to you?
The clerk will be glad to have that from you.
Thank you.
Councillor Demoff?
Do you mind going back to the picture that you had of what you see out of your backyard? And I'm just wondering...
Front yard.
Front yard, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
How do I go back?
If the proposal is for the houses, what is going to be where that picture there?
No,
Okay, this
That
one.
one, yeah.
So what's going to be there if the school proposal does
There'll be a
not go
road
through?
right there.
A road through there,
Right,
okay,
and
thank you.
the neighbors to the south will be looking at the side of a house. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Huska. Madam Clerk, the next delegation, please.
Is Dorothy Byers, again regarding, Dorothy Byers of St. Mildred's Lightburn School, again regarding the Lynbrook School site.
Welcome, Ms. Byers. Council's looking forward to your information.
Thank you very much, and we're just going to get set up, and then we'll be good to go. Mr. Mayor, council members, members of staff, members of the Oakville community, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I am Dorothy Byers, head of school at St. Mildred's Lightbourne School. I am here this evening for two purposes. First, to speak as a supportive neighbor of the proposed Lynbrook Boys School, LBS, and the second, to share information about our vision as a community partner. St. Mildred's Lightbourne School is a not-for-profit independent day school for girls from pre-kindergarten to grade 12. We are a registered charity. We were founded in 1891 by the Sisters of the Church, an Anglican order, and 3 members of our 16-member Board of Governors continue to represent the church. We have been at the current location since 1968. We occupy 11 acres, approximately 40% of which is green space. We have 90 employees and, as such, are a significant business in Oakville. As a supportive neighbor, we believe that Lynbrook Boys School, a not-for-profit school, will fill a need in our community. Often during our admissions interviews with families who have been attracted to Oakville by the exceptional educational opportunities offered in our town, parents ask about a boys' school opportunity for their sons equaling that offered to their daughters at SMLS. When they ask about this availability, sadly, our answer is that none exists and has not for 23 years, and that they must travel out of Oakville to find a boys' school. Would it be not wonderful to have another exceptional educational magnet to attract families to our Oakville? Our support of LBS as a neighbor is not motivated by an economic decision. We are supportive purely because the need has been articulated. We are not related in any formal way beyond Schedule C to the proposal. As a not-for-profit school, we are not focused on producing revenue, but on providing exemplary opportunities for girls in our community. We believe that LBS will support this mission for boys as a not-for-profit school and will enhance the lives of families in livable Oakville. As you know, SMLS has committed in principle to a schedule outlining the opportunities to share busing, share parking during events, and to coordinate school times with LBS. My signature is on the document. It is important to us at St. Mildred's Lightbourne School that any traffic concerns are addressed. Our parents will be impacted to changes in traffic flow, and our commitment to them is to provide an exemplary experience every day in every way. At present, 20% of our girls arrive on a school bus. Busing is run at a significantly financial loss, but we believe that providing transit is an important and environmentally friendly service for our community. Our demographics indicate that 40%, or 223 of our girls, live in the southeast Oakville area. 31%, or 173, live in Oakville beyond the L6J postal code, meaning that fully 71% of our population are Oakville residents. The balance commute from locations such as Mississauga, Burlington, and Etobicoke, mostly on a school bus. Approximately 5% of our girls arrive before our articulated drop-off time in the morning. Our girls are remarkable. By March break this year, 100% were accepted to universities around the world. 75% go on to postgraduate degrees. While at school, they reach out into the world through our vibrant Global Studies program and the local community through service projects, volunteering, and raising funds for numerous charities. They make the world, both here in Oakville and far beyond, a better place. They excel at challenges presented by international competitions, both academic and co-curricular. One example I know that you are familiar with, thanks to the kind comments made by Councillor Giddings, is our exemplary 12-year internationally recognized Canadian all-girl team. We are the longest-standing Canadian all-girl team and recipients of countless awards, including 3 Regional Chairman's Award, the highest possible recognition at a first robotics event. I share these examples to you so that you can appreciate the impact the SMLS, recognized as an Oakville school, has on the world stage. Over the course of these discussions about LBS, I have heard about promises made by SMLS in the past being broken. Since I have been head of school, our Board of Governors and I have welcomed comments from our neighbors, and we have worked together to satisfactorily remedy any concerns. This open-door policy continues. I have heard about past history with our community. I am aware of the 2002 OMB agreement limiting our enrollment to 625. Currently, our population falls significantly below that number. Our building enhancements were designed not to increase enrollment, but to provide a premier learning environment for our girls. We commissioned 2 third-party traffic studies that were submitted to the town, and most recently, the most recent in 2009, prior to the addition of our certified LEED Silver East Wing. This report clearly indicates that additional parking spaces and access points create a traffic pattern that is acceptable. These actions clearly demonstrate our desire to ensure appropriate traffic flow. But beyond traffic and educating girls, I would like to draw your attention to the valuable role that SMLS plays in our community. We believe that schools such as ours have a responsibility that reaches beyond our walls. As a community member, over the past several years, we have offered our space to charitable organizations, and many of our girls, our faculty, and our parents work as volunteers. To highlight, the Marie Agate Bowl presented by the town has recognized our significant per capita contributions for many years to the Terry Fox Walk. In addition, over the past 3 years, we have raised over $180,000 for children and families living with cancer through our participation in the Coast to Coast Cancer Organization's Inside Ride. For 9 years, we have hosted Special Olympics Hometown Soccer, an event that was celebrated in our provincial parliament this year by MPP Kevin Flynn. Every year, athletes, their coaches, family, and supporters are overwhelmed by the incredible support they receive in Oakville at SMLS through availability of our fields, our volunteers, and funds raised through raffles and donations. Special Olympics have recognized SMLS as an exceptional partner. We work with Home Sweet Hope, Halton's charity that provides shelter for needy families, as the venue sponsor for their signature Oakville event, Empty Bowls. This year, the event hosted over 600 people and raised over $100,000, the first time in the event's history. We partner with Kerr Street Ministries, both as donors and volunteers. We offer space to Art House for events to raise funds to support arts in our community for children who cannot afford these activities, which take place during the vulnerable time between after school and dinner. We are partnering with Big Brothers Big Sisters to assist in homework clubs. We offered space to the Lighthouse for grieving families. We are providing parking for a new event, Chelster Hall's Oakville Community Festival, an event in support of charities including, among others, the New Hospital, the Oakville Chamber of Orchestra, and the Humane Society. And most recently, we are working with Oakville Parent-Child Center as the venue sponsor for several significant community events that offer opportunities for parents and children to have fun and meaningful time together. Our vision, as you can see through these examples, is to be a vibrant community partner. We believe that strong families and building strong relationships make a community stronger. Both will enrich the lives of families in Oakville. Independent schools bring these objectives to fruition as they reach out into the community. Your decision this evening is not just about schools, traffic, and finances. It is also about building community. We know that building community makes a town vibrant. This is our purpose. We know that Lynbrook Boys School will share our mission as an independent, not-for-profit school, and we look forward to these opportunities to further enhance our community. Thank you for the opportunity to share this important information with you this evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Byers. Questions? Councillor Elger.
Ms. Byers, thank you for coming tonight, and especially thank you for some of the stats you put up there. I've heard a lot of people say the vast majority of the students going to that school are from outside of Oakville. And what you proved tonight is currently it's 71%. Now, the question is that the norm, or is that a real spike this year?
No, most of our girls do live in the Oakville area and have over the years.
I appreciate that, because that's certainly different than what I've heard rumored around, so I appreciate it. Thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Ms. Byers, for all the information about St. Millie's.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Is Marianne Hawthorne regarding the Lynbrook School site. Again, item 4 of the Administrative Services Committee.
Ms. Hawthorne, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Good evening, Mayor Burton, members of council and staff. I'd like to touch, first of all, on your process in regard to the reuse of the surplus school sites in East Oakville. Before 1967 and the implementation of regional school boards, all these sites originally belonged to the then Oakville School Board, so in effect, and the Oakville taxpayers. So in effect, these sites have been returned to the people of Oakville, and you made that happen. Thank you. Through the long public consultation process and information by yourselves and your staff, it was determined that the best reuse for all the sites was residential, in keeping with the abutting neighborhoods. By a long shot, the neighbors in general agreed, and since infill in established neighborhoods can be very controversial, this was a fine solution, in spite of the fact that most neighborhoods did regret the loss of their public school. Lynbrook Public School, a K-5 facility, had not been a walk-to public school for some years, as it was turned into a French immersion school, and parents driving their kids generated a fair amount of traffic on Lynbrook. Our family lived across the street from Lynbrook for 15 years. Our 3 sons attended Lynbrook, then EJ, then OT, and also Mentor College in Mississauga, as I am a private school supporter. We also lived next door to St. Mildred's, a drive-to private school which also generated a fair amount of traffic, particularly when the institution expanded into a secondary school and students started to drive to the school. The traffic affected every street in the area: Copeland Avenue, David Avenue, Melvin, Balmoral, Chamberlain, and of course Lynbrook Road. At peak hours, the traffic was truly a safety hazard, and the residents who lived on these streets avoided using the streets at these times. Eventually, the municipality, recognizing this incredible problem, forced the traffic flow to go in certain directions from and to the site with signs, crossing guards, and also implemented the bylaw that future private schools could only be located on arterial roads. So the traffic could readily be accommodated, thus taking the private school out of residential neighborhoods in future, as arterial roads are designed for heavy traffic. This didn't help the situation very much for us with St. Mildred's, because at that time, St. Mildred's was grandfathered. but we all manage to work together. Private schools and their board of directors do not function like public school boards. I was a trustee and a former school teacher for the Halton Board of Education, and also for Ward 3, this ward. Private schools and their boards of directors do not function like public school boards, which are required under the Education Act to have regular scheduled meetings, elected trustees, delegations to the board, very similar like yourselves. Private schools are accountable to their parents and patrons, not the general public. So you can understand that a large commercial institution located in a residential neighborhood is bound to have conflicts with local residents, and there were quite a few dust-ups over the years. Many issues were resolved, but in fact, the situation was unfair to residents and the school staff in particular. Having been a school teacher, it was very difficult for the staff to manage issues because the public would speak to the staff because there wasn't anyone else to visit with or talk to. The staff was trying to educate students, not have to deal with student parking across driveways, upset residents, etc. Residents even hired lawyers several times to solve matters when issues flared up, and this was not good, obviously. Private schools are a business. Student populations fluctuate with family finances and the economy, unlike public schools. St. Mildred started out some years ago with a K-8 school on this site, approximately 120 students, and is now a daycare to grade 12 with 600 students. Promises about numbers of students on the Lynbrook site are irrelevant, and however well-intentioned, there is no possibility of enforcement. We discovered that. Gender is also irrelevant. These institutions can change from single gender to co-ed when they and the patrons decide to do so, as you know with Appleby, which did after many years. They can add numbers of students and classes, offer evening, weekend programs, summer programs, and have a very intensive use of the facility or even rent out the facility to other organizations. They are not accountable to the general public, and you have no mechanism for enforcement on these issues. They are accountable to the patrons who pay their fees, and logically so. They have to be. You had an open and accountable process to this and the other surplus sites. The majority of the public and staff recommend that Lynbrook be returned to residential status and that the heritage designation portion of the school be saved. An 11th hour application is not only unfair and unreasonable in view of your own processes. Private schools must now be located on arterial roads, and Lynbrook is not an arterial road. Glen Burnie, Fernhill, Chisholm, Knox, Wildwood, all schools established post-St. Mildred's followed the rules for site location, didn't require zoning amendments, have had no issues with neighboring residents or consumed town staff or habit studies, and have been highly successful and expanded without any problem. So there's no reason to make an exception in this case just because there's an existing facility. In fact, there's every reason not to make an exception, since this is about a commercial enterprise taking advantage of a beautiful established neighborhood. The Lynbrook neighborhood lived it, and together with the town staff, your predecessors, and the staff and directors of St. Mildred's, because we did work together, we found a solution to these incredible problems so that it would not reoccur. Do not let our joint efforts be for naught. The demand is there for alternative education. You heard it tonight. There are other sites available, sites that meet the bylaws of this town and zoning requirements. Why would you encumber this beautiful neighborhood once again? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawthorne. Councillor Adams.
Thank you very much. You've got some speaking notes. Would you provide those to our clerk so we can get copies?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
I'll have to just make some adjustments there because I've written a few things in here.
Well, you can take the doodles of the councillors out if you need to. Yeah.
Sure.
Councillor Duddick?
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for your delegation. You had mentioned 1967 in regards to the Oakville School Board, and then you went on to make reference to the French immersion program. When was that implemented at Lynbrook?
Oh, quite a few years ago. Yeah. One of the
Ballpark?
reasons we put French immersion into schools, it was because Lynbrook was one of the schools that was looking like it would become surplus. So we would put a program like French immersion into the school. And then because French immersion draws from all of Oakville and so forth, and of course generates the traffic, but then we could save the school. We actually, I think it was in the early 70s, Councillor Duddick, yes. But we actually did put French immersion into a lot of the schools to save them, as you probably know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawthorne. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Is Douglas McMullen, again regarding the Lynbrook Public School site.
Welcome, sir. Council's looking forward to your information.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff. I moved to Oakville in 1987, so I'm not an old resident, but I've been here for a while. My children went to St. Mildred's and to Appleby. When I moved to Oakville, Lakeshore Road, southeast Oakville, was a 2-lane, hard-packed road. Ford Drive had not been forced through. Now, Lakeshore Road is 3 lanes, lots of traffic. Ford Drive contributes to that. As Oakville has grown, we've had to see changes, some of which may or may not be to our liking. This may be one of those changes. The town desperately needs an all-male school. This location seems to be the ideal location. It's opposite St. Mildred's. The fact that brothers will now be able to be driven along with sisters to the same location, dropped off. This traffic issue is a very limited issue time-wise. It occurs for 45 minutes to an hour perhaps in the morning, and the same in the evening. It's not an all-day condition. When we talk about the financial benefits to the town, it does produce and provide for many full-time jobs, something every community needs. Be full-time jobs for teachers, administrative staff, maintenance, and so on. This is an important issue as well for our town. The population, as I understand it from the previous delegations, is paid pursuant to the lease at 180 students. It was mentioned that schools seem to do what they like. They morph into other schools, dual sex, increase the enrollment, and so on. This does not seem to be the case for this school and this location. The cap is 180 students, and I ask that you remember that. It cannot expand beyond. I'm here not with a lot of facts, but I'm here as a vote for Mrs. Way and this school. And I ask you to really consider the need in this community for an all-boys school. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McMillan. Councillor Duddick.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for your delegation. Obviously, you're supportive of the school. Do you have a preference in regards to purchasing versus leasing? Because I heard you mention leasing in the course of your deputation.
I have no preference one way or the other. It just seemed to me that one of the pieces of information that I picked up during the previous delegations is that pursuant to the terms of the lease, the population of the school is capped at 180.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
The next delegation is Hal Watson, O'Connor McLeod Hannah, LP, Council for Amber Way, again regarding the Lynbrook Public School site.
Mr. Watson, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council.
What have you got for us?
I am not going to repeat everything my client has said, sir, but we thought there was one or two areas I might be able to add something to. One of those areas is with respect to enforcement, and there was a speaker a few minutes ago talking about enforcement and concerns that nothing could be enforced. We just can't rely on, with the greatest respect, the point of the agreement would in fact be to commit and create legal binding obligations. And so the agreement on its face, from my perspective as a lawyer, is an enforceable document, and there's remedies. Now, the other night at committee, Your Worship, one of the councillors turned to my client and said, would you be prepared to pay financial penalties? And we were talking about this cap of 180. Would you be prepared to pay financial penalties for each day that you're in breach of that cap? And she, without hesitation, and of course as a lawyer, I was sitting back thinking, oh my goodness, what is she doing? But she, without hesitation, said, yes, of course. Because when I talked to her after, she said, well, I'm going to comply with the number. I don't care what the penalty is, because I'm going to comply with it. And so I simply make that point to respond to the concern about whether these agreements are enforceable. My client is prepared to work, Your Worship, to make the agreement enforceable so that the town solicitor and council are satisfied that it's enforceable. So we continue to be willing and able to try to respond to those kinds of concerns. Another issue that I've heard raised that I did want to speak to briefly was this issue of financial. And let me just say, Your Worship, that my client understands that that council has to respect the taxpayer. She understands that. And that's why she seeks no special favor. She understands that she has to pay fair market value if council decided to sell the property. When the city solicitor prepared the lease, I presume he considered fair market value. It struck us as being certainly consistent with fair market value. So we understand that that's the way it would have to work. And I'll just say again, Your Worship, whichever way council preferred to go, either by way of a sale with a right to repurchase, first right of refusal, or a lease, whichever way council took more comfort in or saw greater benefit in, is fine with our client. I did want to quickly speak as well, Your Worship, to the zoning issue. The current zoning generally permits the private school use. The OP permits this use. There's been a school on the site for decades, a school that in fact had significantly more students in it than what's proposed here, and more than twice as many, in fact. And there would be a variance required because private school isn't permitted on a road that isn't 20 meters in width. Now, in my submission, Your Worship, this use will have less impact than that which has been there historically. It will have less impact than a 400-student school, the French immersion school that was there previously. So, to me, in my view, this is a minor variance application. If, at some point, everybody decides that it's a rezoning application, well, they proceed with that. Either way, Your Worship, they understand that it is their problem. They have to make the minor variance application. If they decide it was a rezoning application, they'd have to make that as well. So that's their sort of problem. It's not the town's. I want to speak briefly to the agreement that is contemplated by the draft lease, which was prepared again by the town solicitor. And you've already heard both from Ms. Way and from St. Mildred's Lightburn about really what amounts to a memorandum of understanding, Your Worship, some principles, the idea of sharing busing, sharing pickup and drop off, coordinating them rather, that sort of thing. And the town solicitor has seen that signed by both of those parties. The town would be party to that agreement. That's what's contemplated by the town solicitor. My client has no objection to that. It's understood that if council were to approve the lease, for example, that this agreement, we'd have to get to work in preparing that agreement to the satisfaction of the town solicitor and council. We understand that. Another little piece of information in terms of enforcement, Your Worship, that I'll pass on with respect to this agreement is that my client has advised me that they are prepared to post security. So in other words, if they were to breach the agreement, which they certainly don't intend to do, but if they were to breach it, this issue of enforcement has been raised again, they're prepared to post security on an ongoing basis. So again, I say that if that's not necessary and it doesn't make sense, by all means, we won't do that. But I say it because I want to make sure that council appreciates, Your Worship, that there is a genuine desire to live up to their obligations. And when I heard the speaker say, there's no way to enforce, we'll find a way to make sure that we have to honor our obligations. I won't speak to traffic. I think probably it's been done, but I would say this, Your Worship, really consistent with what I've already been saying on the other issues, and that is that my client is prepared to work hard to address whatever concerns your traffic persons may or may not find with the report that's been done. By all means, if it needs to be peer reviewed, peer review it. And if there's issues that need to be addressed, my client's certainly prepared to do that. Again, on the basis that it's a maximum of 180 students as opposed to the old school of 400, it seems to be only on the positive. In closing, I wasn't going to speak to the soft issues too much, Your Worship, but I can't resist to say that this is being set up as a not-for-profit school. It is something that Ms. Way identifies as important for the community. It's not a commercial enterprise. It's being set up as a not-for-profit school because of the need that she perceives as an educator in the community. And you've heard a little bit about that from a number of speakers. She sees this site as a wonderful location. And she, again, asks no favors. She's happy to pay fair market value. And I see at least three very significant benefits to this. Firstly, it gets that boys' school that you've heard people talking about actually going and available. Secondly, it adds outdoor space, green space, if you will, to the bank in that neighborhood. And of course, any of the concepts protect the woodlot, but this would protect as well the school grounds. Already in the lease, it contemplates in the draft that's been prepared that the public would have access to the school grounds, much like any other public school that you would find in the community. So they understand that, they're agreeable to that, they don't have any objection to that. Of course, if residential housing was put there, that would be gone. And finally, from my perspective, Your Worship, this is a heritage building. It certainly has greater heritage value if it remains in its historical context. Something would be saved by having the building there as a residence, I suppose. But I don't think anybody could argue, maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't argue anyway with the concept that having it in its location, being used as a school in the way it historically has been used, that's pretty positive. There's nothing being contemplated here, by the way, to add additional classrooms, and really the school is going to look pretty much like it looks now. Anyway, those are my submissions subject to questions, Your Worship.
Well, there might be a few. Councillor Elgar and Councillor Khan and Councillor DeMott.
Thank you for coming. Just a clarification. So your client has no preference whether it is a lease or a purchase? Either one works for her just as well?
I think she's fine either way, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You'll recall that I asked your client the question at the ASC meeting, and I expected you to jump and object, but I guess you had faith in your client being candid. I just want to reiterate the question and make sure that you understood it correctly. It wasn't that there would be a fine or a penalty. It would be that the fine and penalty would be so severe that it would go beyond the cost of simply doing business. And I think your client understood that. Is that your position as well?
It is, yes. They understand it's not meant to be a license to operate, at some additional cost.
And if this council agrees to either sell or lease, the fine or penalty would apply to all the conditions and terms as stated in the contract, not just to the 180 enrollment, but to all the specific terms, whether or not there was a breach of contract.
Well, I guess I would say to that, through you, Your Worship, that there's probably some terms in any agreement that don't warrant that kind of severe consequence. You're talking about a pretty significant fine. There would be, I'm sure, in any agreement, and I at a loss to come up with the various terms that would fit in the category and out. But I think it's fair to say that on that particular issue of the cap, certainly no question there, and I'm sure there are other issues that the town, Your Worship, might want to include within that category, and we're open to discussing those. I don't want it, it would be misleading if I said every single term that's in the agreement, the immediate consequence would be a very substantial financial penalty. But in general principle, I'm agreeing with you.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I guess what I was referring to is with the fundamental terms of the contract that would be agreed upon by both parties. Can you also comment on, there was some discussion about a third party undertaking or guaranteeing the agreement if there was a lease between the town and the school?
Through Your Worship, is the councillor asking about the agreement with St. Mildred's? Is that, I think, so what my client had said to me was, again, with a view to trying to make sure that we were being clear that we were going to honor our obligations, was that if there was a breach of the contract, so if really effectively if St. Mildred's or my client fell into breach of that agreement, my client would post securities. So effectively you'd have your money. The penalty would be sitting in a letter of credit or whatever other security the town thought was appropriate.
Would St. Mildred's be party to the lease agreement?
I wouldn't expect them to be party to the lease agreement. I would expect them, the way your town solicitor set this up is that there's a schedule, if you will, to the lease that basically it says to my client, if you want to have this lease, you have got to have an agreement with St. Mildred's, which the town wants to be party to, so that it has privity of contract. And so, the town, St. Mildred's, and my client would be party to this other agreement. And that agreement, I should say, could be in place for regardless of whether it's a lease or purchase.
And I guess I should have asked this earlier, but is St. Mildred's open to being party to that agreement?
Yes, and that's, yes, I believe so. Of course, I have to be careful not to speak for them, but as Ms. Byers said when she was up earlier, they have already, even though we really don't even know whether this is going forward or not, they have already worked away at some principles, things like sharing busing, drop-offs, pickup times, that sort of thing, and have already agreed in principle to a number of sort of basic sort of terms, if you will, that would be the sort of foundation of an agreement. Of course, that agreement would have to get into things like, who pays what share of the cost of the bus, and that so there would be all kinds of little details, but those would come.
Okay. Thank you, Council.
Councillor Demoff.
Thank you for coming out tonight. You mentioned a couple of times the difference that this was not a commercial enterprise, it was a nonprofit school. And a delegation earlier tonight had said, well, they're paying fees, so it must be a commercial enterprise. Can you clarify how a private school operates as a nonprofit charitable organization?
Well, through you, Your Worship, there's a fundamental difference in law. They're incorporated under different legislation. One is, a private corporation that operates for profit is incorporated under the Business Corporations Act, and not-for-profit company is under different legislation altogether. So they're fundamentally different. There's no shareholders in a not-for-profit corporation, no equity. It's owned by, well, if you will, by the members. So again, it's just a fundamentally different kind of legal entity. It doesn't mean that you don't charge for the service. That should be clear.
And there are private schools in Oakville that are for-profit versus what this is being proposed, which is a nonprofit. Is that right?
I believe that to be the case, yes.
Anyone else? Mr. Watson, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Clerk, the next delegation, please.
Is Peter Traher, again regarding the Lynbrook Public School site.
You've got to say it several more times tonight. Mr. Traher, welcome. Council looks forward to your...
Your Worship, councillors, My name is Peter Traher. I live at 1095 Lynbrook Road on the northwest corner of Lynbrook and David Avenue. I'm directly opposite the dining hall of St. Mildred's Lightbourne School. I've lived in this house since April 1967, that is for 46 years, about as long as Mr. McMillan. During that time, we've seen Miss Lightbourne School grow from a small, attractive white building surrounded by grass to the present extensive school complex. Lynbrook School was essentially a neighborhood school where most of the kids walked to and from school. My kids walked and so did all of their friends. Not many were dropped off by car. Now, as St. Mildred's got progressively bigger, the traffic problem grew accordingly, as most of the kids were bused or driven to and from school, and the character of our neighborhood changed substantially. Now, the traffic pattern since Lynbrook School has closed is very interesting, because by the town's count, the traffic department, in 2006, the count was 3,193 counts of vehicles passing the strips. By 2013, that number had increased to 3,619. That's an increase of 500, that's almost 20%. So in spite of Lynbrook School closing, the traffic has got worse. Traffic is still a serious problem. At times, I and my visitors have trouble getting in and out of my driveway. At these times, an ambulance or fire truck or other emergency vehicle, or a bus, because Lynbrook, being a crosstown route, is a bus route, they would have real troubles getting through. Over the years, we've had numerous and continuing efforts to try to minimize the traffic problem. These have included many discussions between the schools and the neighbors. I believe Council has heard of these traffic problems numerous times at each stage of the St. Mildred's expansion. Residents feel very strongly about this. It's largely because of these and other problems that Council has imposed a cap on the number of students at St. Mildred's. I am not in favor of the proposal to put another school on the Lynbrook site. Whichever way you cut it, the traffic would increase by 30%, and that is untenable. I seriously question the suggestion, which is purely speculation, that half of the boys will have sisters at St. Mildred's. In any event, if that is the case, that'll cause further problems with parents having to wait somewhere for half an hour to pick up the other child. There will also be kids straggling across the road in both directions, causing further delays. Whichever way you look at the traffic, it's going to increase by 30%, and that's untenable. A further complication is that St. Mildred's, as they have said, is not yet at its student maximum. More students at St. Mildred's are going to meet even more traffic. There's been discussion about how difficult it would be for the town to impose limits on traffic from schools or to police agreements to control traffic flow. If these rosy projections for solving traffic problems are wrong, many residents are going to be very unhappy with the traffic conditions, and I believe the town will have very little power to improve the situation. Under the South Central Lands Study, the town has had extensive discussion with the residents and others concerning the various vacant school properties and the other properties becoming available. The vast majority of the residents at these open public meetings wanted a community centre in southeast Oakville as part of the overall plan, and they favoured this residential option for the Lynbrook site, with the associated overall funding implications, meaning it will provide the funding for a community centre in southeast Oakville. And what is very important, the Chartwell Maple Grove Residents Association conducted a purely independent study of the residents. This survey found that out of 90 of the immediate residents, 56 or 60% were opposed to the private boys' school, and they favoured the residential option. Now, I could read about 50 letters that the association has on hand from these residents explaining why they are against this proposal. I believe these letters have been circulated to the councillors. Now, I'm not against a private boys' school. I went to one myself. There were beautiful playing fields and lots of space. But the Lynbrook site is not the right location for a private boys' school. I would also like to make it clear that under the residential proposal, the woodlot will be preserved. There seems to be a misconception about that. I therefore strongly suggest that the town proceed with the residential proposal, and I ask councillors to vote accordingly. So, Your Worship, I have a letter that I would like to read with your permission from my neighbours who live across the road, across David Avenue. In other words, they're the northeast corner of David and Lynbrook. Dear council members, please accept this brief note in our absence as notification of our objection to the conversion of the former Lynbrook Public School to a second private school. As you know, our street has been overwhelmed in the past by the two existing schools. St. Mildred's, having undergone a series of expansions over the years, has grown into a formidable size, swallowing up homes and properties, substantially changing the character of the street and resulting in heavy traffic to a saturation point. Lynbrook, while operating, was a part of this. However, it was a public school and drew its students from the local community. There was little chance or need of expansion. Years ago, during a similar meeting, we pointed out to the former mayor that St. Mildred's was first and foremost a business with a need to grow and be profitable. She was quite put out by this and lectured us on the need to educate our children. Nonetheless, councillors, we say again that private schools must needs be profitable or they cannot succeed. Therefore, the business plans for any new school will call for expansion and growth. If not now, then in 5 years and again in 10 or 15 years. One of St. Mildred's stated reasons for their last expansion was that they could not continue to be viable and sustainable without expansion. It clearly makes sense that any new school will have to achieve the size and staffing required to offer competitive programs and will require the enrollment numbers to pay for this. Construction of new gyms, libraries, cafeterias, and classrooms will irrevocably change the street to a major institutional road. Clearly, another private school on the street will result in total traffic gridlock. St. Mildred's is well aware of their impact on local traffic and has attempted to mitigate this with little success. Doubling this will completely block local residents. Therein lies the seed of future road expansion. Our experience with the town unfortunately shows that this will be encouraged and permitted. Lynbrook Road cannot take the increase in traffic as the new school approaches St. Mildred's in size. One giant school on a small residential street is enough. Assuredly, other locations can be found for a new boys' school. Signed by Val and Sue Facchetti on 1109 Lynbrook Road. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much for the double set of information. Councillor Rilger has a question for you.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of times 30% traffic volume increase. And I was looking at the traffic volumes, and I believe Lynbrook's at 2,700 vehicles a day. And you really believe that they're going to go up to 810 vehicles a day?
Did you say 2,700 a day?
That's the 2012 Oakville traffic count for Lynbrook.
I think that was 2011, according to my record.
Well, mine's 2012.
2013 shows 3,600.
At the 2012 numbers that we got from staff recently.
Well, there was a count done on, when was it? 29th of May of this year, and it shows that that number of 2,700 is now 3,600.
It's going to go up another 30% above that, so you're talking over 1,000, I guess, are you? You're thinking it's going to go up?
I'm thinking it went up by 20% in those years with the new school, and that was with the Lynbrook school closing. So with a new school in there, it's going to go up significantly.
3%?
That's an estimate. I mean, lots of estimates around.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Is Angela D'Amico regarding the Lynbrook Public School site.
Mr. D'Amico. Mr. D'Amico. Oh. If you registered to delegate, would you please move to the center?
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak about such an important topic. My name is Angelo D'Amico, and I'm a resident of Ward 3. My daughter has been a student at St. Mildred's Lightbourne since 2008, and the school was the reason why we moved to Oakville. My wife and daughter can walk to school, and they take advantage of that option whenever the weather permits. I'm a graduate of St. Michael's College School in Toronto, and I'm a strong proponent of gender-specific education. It was during my years at St. Mike's that I first recognized that area's high concentration of private schools and the value that it offered to the residents of that neighborhood. Oakville stands out as a place to plant roots for this very reason, and if my wife and I are blessed to have a son, there is no doubt in our mind he would go to Lynbrook Boys School. One of the main things that attracts families to an area is the education options. This importance is even greater when international families choose where to live when relocated to this province. A funny story, my brother-in-law was in China 3-4 months ago, and the business associate he deals with in their boardroom had a map of Canada. And on that map of Canada was Ontario. And there were 2 cities circled on that map. The first was Markham, for cultural reasons. The second was Oakville. And Jimmy, being an inquisitive guy, asked him why Oakville. And he said, the one reason was the private schools. That's one example. Even the Chinese know about Oakville and their private schools. In grade 3 alone, the grade my daughter just completed, approximately 25% of the girls were not born in Canada. Their parents chose to make Oakville their home for educational reasons. I know this because I ask a lot of questions when we get together for parent events. For those who are in opposition of the school for traffic concerns, unless you've been a resident there before 1932, you will have known that there were 2 schools on Lynbrook Road, and your concerns, in my opinion, are not valid. Schools add values to communities, and if you are inconvenienced twice a day, you should have considered this before you bought your home there. When you live near train tracks, you're going to hear trains throughout the day. When you live near airports, I know that was already taken, but guess what? You're going to hear planes. A unique educational option for my daughter made me move to Oakville, and LBS School, or Lynbrook Boys School, will make many more move to Oakville in the future. The rate of new home building is skyrocketing in the area that I live in. The original property that we moved onto, the property taxes were a fraction of what we're paying today. We're actually paying 5 times more of the original property taxes today than they were paying 5 years ago when the house was not a rebuild. The long-term benefits to the town of Oakville, having an all-boys education option, cannot be measured strictly in revenue terms. Parents of St. Mildred's Lightbourne School have consistently complained there is nothing comparable for their sons. Lynbrook Boys School will basically fulfill the pent-up demand. If you build it, guess what? They'll come. If you're going to talk finances, the new families who choose to move to Oakville will generate enormous tax revenues in the long term, far exceeding what 6 potential homes might be able to offer. And finally, the fact that we have someone so passionate as Amber, who is way overqualified to make the school a reality, the town of Oakville should be thankful for her vision and dedication to improving where we all live. That's it.
Thank you very much for the information. Are there questions? Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Is Janet Haslett-Thiel, President, Joshua Creek Residents Association, regarding the draft 2014 capital budget and long-term forecast, which was item 3 of the 2014 Budget Committee meeting of June 25th.
Ms. Haslett-Thiel, welcome. Council looks forward to your information. And you're not alone.
I'm never alone. It's a wonderful thing. So we're back. My name is Janet Haslett-Thiel. As you know, I am the president of Joshua Creek, but I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of the Community Centers Coalition. And I'm joined with David from TCRA and Danny from CMGRA. We have other supporters. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here tonight. We wanted to speak to Council at large, as it is you who we have heard our delegations previously and whose support we have appreciated. Tonight, we are asking you to revisit the timing currently projected for the building of the South Central Community Center on the OTMH hospital lands. Our coalition was founded on the belief that fair geographic distribution of community services should be a core principle in the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan. Your unanimous support of the 2012 Master Plan supported this principle and approved the inclusion of the first ever community center for Southeast Oakville and the preservation or rebuilding of Oakville Arena. Tonight, we are asking you to follow through on your commitment by directing the budget staff to find solutions that will enable the first ever community center in Southeast to be open for services in September 2018, not 2021. We note that the community center is listed as an enhancement within the capital forecast. For clarity, the building of this community center is not an enhancement. It is providing a community center for an area that has never had one. This may come as a surprise to other parts of Oakville who have for years had comprehensive facilities right in their neighborhoods. We are simply asking for fair geographic distribution of community services so we too can have a community hub. We have consistently encouraged the development be expedited so that established neighborhoods are not subject to years of construction and the risk associated with empty buildings. During preliminary budget discussion, there was some confusion regarding the timing of revenues that can and should support this project. Both Brantwood and Chisholm can and should generate $11.3 million in revenue well in advance of 2016, and that's not including the taxes from the residents. We strongly encourage you to revisit the consultant's suggested market assessment for Brantwood lots, as they are far below market value. In regards to Lynbrook School, currently the residential option of Lynbrook would contribute over $7.3 million to the town. Whatever your decision is tonight in regards to the development of Lynbrook School, we hope you will ensure that funds from the leasing or development of those lands supports the building of our first ever community center in Southeast Oakville and does not jeopardize or delay its development. This revenue, along with significant development charges for the continued growth along Cornwall and numerous apartments planned for Midtown, should provide sufficient funds to support having the center built and open to the public by September of 2018. In addition, the hospital density concerns will be resolved by summer of 2014, and the design can and should be ready for both the community center and residential development no later than January of 2015. This provides plenty of time to deal with developers concurrently with the remediation of the hospital lands in January of 2016. The residents' associations are prepared to continue working closely with the town staff to help ensure the process can be completed in a 5-year time frame. We therefore ask that you direct town staff to move forward in the capital plan the timing of the community center such that it'll be ready for the public use no later than September of 2018. We want to remind you that by September 2018, our schools, which provided some community services, will have been closed for over 8 years. We know that September 2018 is both reasonable and doable, and we ask that you direct town staff to come back with options to make this happen. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for your information. My goodness, you've generated a thought or two. Councillor Demoff? I was just going to go across, and I saw you first.
Thank
for
you.
a change.
You mentioned in your delegation, thank you for coming out, all of you, by the way, something about the timing of the building of the school. Do you have any reason to believe that the decision on Lynbrook is going to affect the timing of the building of that community center?
What we as a group want to make sure is that you understand it's our view that whatever you decide, it cannot and should not delay what needs to be done, which is to provide a community center, the first ever for Southeast Oakville. So whatever you decide, just make it happen by September of 2018.
Thank you.
We've got our orders. Councillor Giddings.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Haslett-Thiel, Ms. Morowitz, Mr. Mellon, thank you very much for coming out. Appreciate your ongoing efforts on behalf of the community. Ms. Haslett-Thiel, you mentioned lots below market value. Are you referring specifically to Lynbrook or to Chisholm and Brantwood?
It's generally thought that Brantwood is the one that's off, though we believe that there's probably upside on Lynbrook, and there's possibility that there's upside depending on how we work through the density issue on the hospital.
Which will be coming back to us in 2014.
June of 2014, so we'll have plenty of time.
All right. Second question, you mentioned the community center. We had talked at previous council meetings about a fitness center being included, or fitness facilities. Care to expand upon that?
Well, I believe that there is a requirement to put a fitness facility within that community center. It is part of the hub. It allows families of all ages to be able to participate in activities. And if you use River Oaks as an example, it has an anchor of a hockey arena, but our anchor would be a pool. Having a fitness facility with activity rooms, you know, kids can be going off to their swimming lessons, mom and dad can be doing something in the activity room, or having a community meeting, which we currently have to have at the pub, or actually working off some of this excess energy that we might have.
Thank you very much.
Next, Councillor Adams.
Thank you for joining us again, and thank you for wrapping up both the budget and Lynbrook all together in one place.
It was tough to do.
I imagine you may have looked at the results of the budget committee from last week, and you may have noticed the desire by some in, I'll call it South Central Oakville, to move forward the Oakville Arena work there. And you might have noticed some of the Ward 1 councillors asking for tennis courts, basketball facilities, and libraries to be moved up earlier. And so you're in the same ballpark, same issue, I'll say. And
but for clarity, not the same issue, because ours is about fair geographic distribution of community services. And if you look at some of those requests, that is not about not having something, it's about adding to something.
Ward 1 would disagree, but I take your point. I don't mean to debate with you on that point. I fully understand your...
It's a relief to the chair.
That's right. I'm not debating...
Are you going anywhere with these? Are you getting any information here?
Yes, I am going somewhere with,
okay.
with all this.
All right.
Eventually, I'll get there. And so my question for you is, would you be satisfied if we asked our staff to report on the implications of moving it forward? Would that do it for you? As a starting point? I understand what you wanted now, but...
No, I want it by September of 2018. That's not now. That's actually 5 years away.
But you'd like us to direct our staff directly to do it. But would you, as a starting point, would it be enough for us to get an implications report?
Yes, and the phrase that I used in the delegation is to come back with options to make it happen.
So
I don't want to just hear, here's all the reasons we can't do it. I want to hear reasons of how we can do it.
Okay. So, for example, one of the, when we were discussing the budget around the Ward 1 matters, and I would apply it as well to the arena, some of the discussion went to, if we're advancing something within that ward, it may mean you have to swap out something else that's also within that ward or within that general area.
Well, then we're in good news, because we don't have a lot of community services in our ward. So, sure, there's always a compromise, but I come back to, it's the principle. And you supported that principle.
Yeah.
And it is not an unreasonable request. 8 years from the school closure, 5 years from now, there will be revenue coming in. I think that we've demonstrated that we can work together, and September 2018 is truly a doable, reasonable number. Trust me, we had people suggesting that could have been done a whole lot earlier than that.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your questions.
That was a good choice, Councillor Adams, in that line of questioning. I don't see any other questions. Thank you for your information. Daniela, will we see you in a minute on item 4?
I'll be back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lenny.
The next delegation?
The next delegation is Joanne Mazierczyk.
Maziarczyk.
Mazierczyk.
Maziarczyk.
Mazierczyk. Yeah, I should have gone with that.
It's very close.
I was taking the bullet for the clerk.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Welcome. Council looks
thank
forward
you.
to your information.
Thanks. Well, as it's been stated, I'm Joanne Maziarczyk. I'm here with my husband, Conrad, and my two youngest boys. I have 4 boys. We live at 473 David Avenue. We moved onto Limbrook Road over 22 years ago. We are one of those families that bought our home because we loved being near a school. We love the green space that my boys have had many birthday parties at, the football games, the soccer games. We love being able to use that park. Also, for the past 20 years, I have been part of the traffic on Limbrook Avenue. I drive south on David Avenue, and then I turn either left or right, taking my 4 boys to the Catholic school system or the private school system. And I'm here to tell you that the traffic is not that bad. There have been numerous meetings with St. Mildred's over the years, and I have found the majority of the people in their cars quite polite. In fact, when I get up to the end of David Avenue and put my signal on, many times, almost immediately, a car lets me turn, so there's not much of a wait. And as I said in some of my emails, when there is a wait, it's no longer generally than one would perhaps wait for a red light. I'll make it very short. I'll say it was a very sad day for my family when we heard that Limbrook Public School was closing. We were part of the Save Our School campaign, and we understood that demographics change and that schools needed to be built in other parts of the city. However, with this new proposal, we are delighted that this beautiful old school can be kept a school. Keeping St. Mildred's the size that it is now and allowing an all-boys school with a population of under 200 students sounds perfect to me. The 10 to 15, 20 minutes of annoying traffic Monday to Friday is a very small price to pay for enjoying the beautiful green space that we have across the street.
Thank you very much for the information. I don't see any questions. Before we call the next delegation, I want to share some math with everyone here. In 2.25 hours, we've heard 10 people, and or 11 actually, and we have 11 to go, I think. And so that's another 2.5 hours, and we can't go past 10:30. Meetings are 7 to 10, and we can, by majority vote, go past the hour, but only to 10:30. So there are some urgent matters we have to do, and there's no physical way we're going to get through all the delegations and make the decision on Lynbrook tonight. So we have in reserve Wednesday night. So here's my proposition for the delegations. We can stay and hear you and do nothing else tonight and resume Wednesday, or you could come back and give your delegations when we're actually making the decision. So it's a question of when do you think you'd be more, when would you rather make your argument? The night that we make the decision or 2 nights before? So if there's uptake by all 12 of those left to speak, I would propose to put this matter over to Wednesday and try to, before we run out of time, deal with the other urgent matters that are on the agenda. So you know who you are: Karen Liu, Daniela Morowitz, Jillian Santangeli, Rahul Sekun, Lynn Laban Mason, Don Pangman, Joe Overdevest, Kay Wiley, Andrea Williamson, Amanda and Pat Cici, and Mansur Khan. How do you say, oh, and I'm sorry, I missed a late ad Blair McCauley, so maybe it's 13. Do you want to do it, your talk tonight and then sit and watch Wednesday, or do you want to do your talk Wednesday? If you are unanimous about waiting, then that's what we'll do. And if you want to press on tonight and make the decision Wednesday, then that's what we'll do. Mr. Pangman, you're one of those.
I'd just like to ask, will all the council members be present on Wednesday?
Oh, I believe so. Yes. Any member of council not planning to be here? So I knew it would be a full house. This is an important decision. Pardon?
Your Worship, I just wondering about, if we heard the delegation tonight, we could continue Tuesday afternoon. Like if we heard everyone tonight, and maybe not everyone's going to talk 10 minutes.
Okay, so.
That's all I'm just wondering.
We don't have Tuesday afternoon available. We have Wednesday evening available. So, but whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday, the logic is the same. Do you want to make your pitch before the time when council deliberates, or do you want to make it the same time? That's all it is. So let me see the hands of those who want to go now. So can I call that unanimous, that they'd like to wait? Okay. So let's not argue with the decision. Let's make one and move on. So, Councillor DeMoff?
Sorry, I thought someone in the audience, perhaps, that was going to speak had something that she...
No, she spoke, actually.
Well, no, I would just like to hear maybe if they show hands, if the councillors would prefer that we do our I mean, they've given a lot of their time and stuff, and as residents, we've come to speak to an issue we hold dear to our hearts, but you are the ones that are here every night, and so I'd like to know if the councillors feel it would be more appropriate for us to continue or to postpone it to Wednesday.
Well, that's fine, but council will vote on whether to do it or not, and that's how you'll know.
Okay.
So I hadn't overlooked that. Councillor?
I wonder if there's anybody that can't be here Wednesday night. We could hear them now.
Was there any of the members, I mean, is there anyone who can't be here Wednesday night who was registered to speak? I understood from their answer that they all could.
I'll take 2 minutes over.
Come on down.
On a point of order, sir, I don't know if it's a point of order, but I would beg your cooperation that perhaps we could just quickly take the hydro matter out of order if nobody has any questions, because we have 11,000 households in North Oakville out of power right now, and I'd like to see these gentlemen get back to work and help us with that.
Yes, so we'll give this gentleman 2 minutes.
Okay.
And then we'll make that move that basically I took you to be suggesting.
Yeah, thanks.
So we'll get there in 2 or 3 minutes, depending. Sir, are you Mansour?
Rahul Sekhan.
You're Rahul Sekhan?
Yeah. Good evening.
Welcome. Council is looking forward to your information, however short or long it may be.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief because I think I've heard both sides of the equation. So I live on 1125 Lynbrook Road, which is right on the intersection of Chamberlain and Lynbrook. And I am a very recent addition to that community. I've moved in August, and one of the prime reasons I moved in there is because I have 2 daughters, both of which are going to go to St. Mildred's, and that was the attraction. And yes, they will walk. That was the prime reason we got in, because we as parents can't afford to drive them to their schools at the times that the schools open. But anyways, I think one of the key points that I wanted to kind of mention out there, traffic certainly is a big concern. Traffic would be an eventuality out of whether there's a 1 school or 2 schools, traffic volume is going to increase. What I think has not been kind of mentioned and kind of debated is the fact that when most people go to mostly when they pick up their kids, they arrive 15, 20 minutes ahead of time. And as those cars are kind of idling and sitting on Lynbrook, they're creating a kind of an environmental hazard to some degree. It's just good fortune that we have so many trees out there which can absorb all that excess carbon monoxide. And so I think that there's one more consideration than traffic, which is people idling. And traffic certainly increases even for those kids who are walking to schools in conditions of inclement weather. When it's rainfall or snow, most parents would be driving to pick up the kids from school. So that is certainly going to add to the volume. In respect of having a public boys' school or a private boys' school or a public co-ed educational school, I think both schools, like all these ideas are great. These are fabulous from a community perspective. So also is probably opening a library, which I believe has been voted down as a part of those three choices that were presented out there. So anyways, those were my points. They're no different than what most of the presenters have talked about. I'm not in disfavor of the school. I think it's a great idea to maintain and preserve a heritage building, but I think there should be some consideration in terms of whatever the town decides are the proper traffic volumes that are going to be caused by having a new school in that location. That was my 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Appreciate your clarifying that at the end.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, you have a note.
If you were going to defer to Wednesday night?
Okay, so we'll find out if we want to do this for the audience. If we have a mover and seconder and pass the following motion, that the remaining delegations and consideration of item 4 of the ASC be deferred to the Wednesday, July 10th, continuation of the meeting to commence at 7 p.m. Councillor Lapworth moves, Councillor Khan seconds, Councillor Robinson, Councillor Duddick.
Your Worship, I wonder if we could maybe delay implementing that motion until we see what our timing is in regards to this hydro issue. It might be premature.
It's not the only urgent item I'd love to clear the decks of. Then we could focus on Lynbrook on Wednesday night. So it's just in the interest of efficiency of meeting. And we have apparently obtained widespread agreement, unanimous agreement. How often do we get that? So all in favor? Opposed, if any? That does carry. And our delegations, we thank you for coming. We thank you for your patience, and we look forward to seeing you Wednesday. And you don't have to fear that leaving will disrupt us, because we're going to take a minute here while you do that. Thank you very much. All right, the recess is over, and we have quorum. And the first thing I'll ask you, Council, is how do you wish to deal with the report from the Budget Committee? Councillor Johnson moves the approval of the Budget Committee recommendation. Councillor Adams seconds. Discussion? Second thoughts? Councillor Adams.
Given the the second to last delegation that we had, I'm happy to review that matter with our staff.
Okay, thank you. He will discuss that with staff as budget chair. And we have a long public session of meetings ahead in which that will surely get ventilated. So all those in favor? Councillor, oh, sorry.
Well, I just wanted to point out, Your Worship, in defense of what we heard a few minutes ago, Ward 3 has a few schools with some facilities. Lakeshore Woods has none of that.
We're not debating that now.
I know, but I did.
We'll take that when we get to it. How's that? All right. So all those in favor? Opposed, if any, and that is adopted. So then on community services, what was the separation?
Item 7, Metrolinx.
Okay, item 7, the Metrolinx item was referred to council. Councilors, you have a draft that we discussed at community services, and Councillor Demoff, in being mindful of the comments that you shared with us at CSC, on reflection, I deleted any reference to any of the specific tax proposals by Metrolinx in the hope that we could have a ready agreement to the rest of this. Yes, you may, certainly.
I read it, and it's fine with me.
Is that you moving it?
Happy to move it.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Councillor Grant, thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you very much, Council.
The remainder of the CSC?
Now the remainder of the CSC. Councillor Adams moves.
I'll move it. Item number 1 needs to be, I think, amended to remove the second component in as much as we have received the memo of explanation. So unless there's further question about it, I don't think that needs to be there.
All
So I'll
right,
delete
a seconder
this
for the modified motion, Councillor Giddings?
Yeah, if I could just speak to that, I'm happy to do that. I will bring forward a request for report at a later date.
Super. All right then, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Now, on administrative services, we've detached
Item 4.
item 4 and sent it to Wednesday. Councillor Johnston. The balance is moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Khan. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, and that is dispatched. So now, we have a presentation available from the legal department on its work, which they can defer to a later meeting this year. And I don't think we actually need a motion to do that, but I'll take one if you want. Councillor Johnston moves that we defer that to later in the year at staff's discretion. Councillor Lapworth seconds it. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Now, Council, you have the 2013 Strategic Work Plan Progress Report. There is no presentation, but staff are available if you have questions. It was a very comprehensive report. Has anyone questions? Councillor Khan is moving it. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Knoll is seconding it. I take it that's the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is adopted. Now, the next urgent item on our agenda is the acquisition of lands. That's a budgeted item. You have a full report. Councillor Adams?
I'd move in and the confidential item as well.
Councillor Adams moves the two items. We need a seconder. Councillor Khan is the second. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Now, our next urgent item is the Oakville Hydro report. And the recommendation is that the Oakville Hydro Corporation resolution contained in the confidential correspondence to the Commissioner of Corporate Services dated June 27th regarding geo-exchange systems be approved. How do you wish to proceed? Councillor Knoll?
I'd be prepared to move the staff recommendation as well as the confidential item.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston seconds. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Now, believe it or not, this year a council meeting falls on November 11th. The ceremony and the observance is at 11 and noon at Georgia Square. So people everywhere don't take the evening off. It's your choice, though, Council. If you, so we brought you this item so that you could determine whether we have the council meeting on the 11th of November or put it off a week. Councillor Khan.
I move that we put it off a week.
It wasn't a week, it was 2 days.
Sorry, I misspoke. 2 days.
1 day, everything moved.
1 day.
Then that's my
I just
motion.
repeat what I'm told, even when it changes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just clarify, if you were putting it off, it was recommended that the Planning and Development Council on the 11th move to the 12th, and the 12th standing committees move to the 13th. If council wants to rearrange the schedule, and that would be the appropriate motion.
That's my motion.
Councillor Khan. Councillor Dudek is seconding that. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is a carry. Then we have the Regional Energy Planning and Siting for Large Energy Infrastructure Projects in Ontario. This is urgent because the public presentation or the public intake session that OPA is running here in Oakville, courtesy of MPP, former Councillor MPP Kevin Flynn, is tomorrow night. So Cindy is here if you need a presentation, but as with all her reports, it's extensive, and I know you've read it. What is your pleasure? Make a decision. Councillor Adams is moving it. Councillor Khan is seconding it. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Now, we do have an item that requires us to go in camera. That's item C1, which is a matter.
Bargaining update. Sorry. An item about labor negotiations.
So this is an item about labor negotiations. And before we go into camera, so that we end in camera and inconvenience the press the littlest, can we take up the new business of the surplus land motion from Councillor Robinson and Councillor Johnston? I don't think there's any action here required. This is just notice that it's to be held on, considered on August 12th, which was one of Councillor Robinson's anxieties about tonight. So, and then as I understand it, there is a more urgent item from Councillor Johnston and Councillor Elgar on the Enbridge pipeline. And that should be on your table. And councillors, considering the importance you attach to it, it seems to me that you might speak to it. Councillor Johnston?
Thank you, Mayor. As we all know, Enbridge is looking to reverse Pipeline 9, and I don't believe there's enough safety features involved in their line, and I'm requesting that we support installation of isolation valves at all water crossings, and that we ask the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative and the City of Burlington, who both have intervener status, to bring forward this request at the hearings, which will be beginning shortly.
Okay, if they're not already ongoing, in fact. Councillor Elgar?
I just wonder if you could read the motion into what it is, so if anybody out there in TV land is watching, so they understand it.
Could you read it for me, Councillor, with my cold? I would appreciate it.
I was going to get the mayor.
Legible that way.
I was going, when the mayor just read it into everything.
All right. Moved by Councillors Johnston and moved by Councillor Johnston and seconded by Councillor Elgar. Whereas, this is fairly long.
Yeah, it's good for you.
It's like your greens and your vitamins. Okay. Whereas Enbridge Pipelines is seeking approval from the National Energy Board for the flow reversal between North Westover and Hamilton and Montreal to an eastward direction and capacity expansion to 300,000 barrels per day of the existing Line 9 pipeline, including an allowance for the transportation of heavy crude oil products. Whereas the NEB, as the responsible federal agency regulating pipelines, energy development and trade in Canada, issued a hearing order convening a public hearing for this project. Whereas Environment Canada reports that 1 drop of oil can render up to 25 liters of water unfit for drinking. Whereas Environment Canada reports that oil products are harmful to aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. Whereas the pipeline integrity and other preventative and emergency response measures are paramount to minimizing the likelihood of a release and for the protection of the community and the environment. Whereas failure of the pipeline will lead to oil products release into the environment and contamination of our waterways and potentially Lake Ontario. And whereas currently only one remote controlled isolation valve is located in the region of Halton along the Enbridge Line 9 pipeline, therefore be it resolved that Enbridge be requested to install isolation valves on each side of watercourses to provide enhanced environmental protection and improve the potential for minimization of environmental contamination of our waterways and potentially Lake Ontario, and health and safety impacts in the event of a pipeline failure. That the National Energy Board be requested to require the installation of isolation valves on each side of watercourses, regardless of whether they are classified as navigable or not, to provide enhanced environmental protection and improve the potential for minimization of environmental contamination of our waterways and potentially Lake Ontario, and health and safety impacts in the event of a pipeline failure. That a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, as they have intervener status in the NEB hearing process for the Enbridge project for inclusion in their hearing submissions, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the City of Burlington, as they have letter of commenter status in the NEB hearing process for the Enbridge project for inclusion in their hearing submission. So 2 motions are required. First, a motion to waive the procedure bylaw to permit this. Councillor Elgar moves that, and Councillor Johnston moves that. And we need 9 votes. All those in favor? Look at that, you have 9 votes. It carries. And now we need a majority, I suspect we may get everybody, in favor of the resolution, which has been duly moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, and it does indeed carry. Now, I understand that there's also a request for report, possible, or perhaps 2, I just heard. Councillor Robinson, is it true that you have a request for a report?
I do. It's here, and it's been seconded by Councillor Johnson that staff be requested to report back on possible means and in what situations the town of Oakville might offer assistance to municipalities which have experienced a disaster.
All righty. Any discussion? It's moved and seconded. All in favor? And that carries, Councillor. Who was the other request? Councillor Adams and Councillor Khan. Councillor Adams and Councillor Khan.
We'd like to move a request for a report that staff be requested to report on options to either increase the setback requirements under the open burning bylaw section 2.2F or ban open air burning in urban areas. Just so you know, Mississauga has a 5-meter setback, we have a 3, and Burlington has a ban. So that's why we're asking for further information.
All right, discussion? I'll put the vote then. All in favor? That carries, councillors. Now, I believe that takes care of all items that we can do in public before this other item. And I need a motion, before we have a motion to go into camera, I'd like a motion to go past 10, because we can only do that in public. So Councillor Elgar, seconded by Councillor Khan. All those in favor? Opposed? So the motion to go past 10 carries. Now we need a motion to enter a session closed to the public for purposes dealing with section, the permission under the Municipal Act is labor relations or employee negotiations. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Khan, all those in favor, and that carries. So, Madam Clerk, would you arrange the chamber for a session closed to the public? Hopefully it'll be brief. All right, Council has met in a session closed to the public under the provisions of the Municipal Act, which allows us to close part of a meeting to the public if the subject matter is being considered is labor relations or employee negotiations, which is what we did. And I would now look to Council for a mover and seconder for the staff recommendation in item C1. Councillor Elgar and Councillor Khan, all in favor? Opposed, if any, and that carries. And now, if we could have a mover and seconder for the bylaws, Councillor Robinson and Councillor Knoll. This is authority for bylaw 2013-45, the bylaw to amend the fire route bylaw. 2013-67, the administrative monetary penalties program bylaw, that's CSC item 2, and 2013-69, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of a meeting of council. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. That completes our agenda that we left for tonight, and we will resume this meeting, which I'll now recess, on at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. Thank you for your time and attention. It's been great working with you.